Good morning. I think I've had a little bit of tech drama here, but that's okay. I was trying to figure out. There's because I've upgraded the version of OBS, but then I think I've got the whole workflow is a little bit off because I've been using some slightly different software. So if the sound didn't come through, that'll be why. Just give me one sec. Let me just check some stuff. Just been tinkering with a few things. Hang on. Sounds good. Okay. All right. Let me just try something else. Hang on.
What a load of
Okay, so that does work. That part works. The very important part works. Okay. Which is the least important part. Anyway. Hi. I thought I'd try something different. Mostly because Janelle's here. Okay, let me just check that the chats are. Hang on, let me just refresh. All right, let's see if the chats come through, and I think we might be ready to rock and roll. Okay. So I'll, as usual, when I move and change setups and that sort of stuff, I will tinker with settings and stuff. Hopefully the sound's okay. It wasn't that great last time, had some lags, but it's always an ongoing experiment. And I try the different color grades and various other things, and then I watch it back, and then I look across devices because things that sound good on one device don't sound good on the other. And I'm not an audio engineer, and it's just not something that I have the interest in doing, but also it's not really a top priority for me other than learning how to do stuff. And anyway, we all work to our strengths, and the time that I spend reading and doing actual research and all that sort of stuff, I could be tinkering with sound to keep some bro happy, which I won't do. So it's a matter of priorities, right? So hopefully the video doesn't lag too much this time. It should be a little better. But we'll see how we can go. See how we go, and should be okay. So hello, Janelle. It's been a crazy fucking weekend, hasn't it? I haven't even had a minute to look up what's happening in Israel and Gaza, because I did see some indication that there was going to be some negotiation there. I don't have details, so I don't know. But, America's doing what America does best, which is a basic, flood of too much information that no one person can process. And if anyone thinks they can, then they're lying to you. You can't keep up with everything that's going on. Learning background, you just can't cover all sorts of things at once, right? Even things that are within, something as simple as the OpenAI thing. There's a whole back history. You kind of got to, it depends on what angle you want to do, but there's a lot of prep involved, a lot of, anyway. The get woke, go broke will be the quality top level analysis that I'm sure that the richest newsman in the YouTube game will come out with. I'm sure that it'll just be get woke, go broke, because it's easy to say that to idiots, isn't it? But it's not that simple, as we know. But I will talk about OpenAI a little bit because it's quite funny. It's been a wild ride, but I think that what a lot of people don't realize is the sort of the factional. What you see, it's kind of. I know I've alluded to it before about how. The money runs the show, how you kind of, when you create technology, you somewhat over a barrel with VCs and the money could, don't necessarily have the tech and users front of mind when you are, you kind of sell out. There's no such thing as free money. Getting that, even just that sort of seed money to develop product is, it always comes at a cost. It always comes at a compromise. And unfortunately, the thing about tech, this is every business, right? It's every business. But the thing about tech in particular is that you'll see that the psychopaths who are so here's the thing I've discovered about tech. which is that it's because of the amount of money involved, the personalities involved, like the kind of innovations and stuff that we are all, that are, being performed, like people are excited and enthusiastic. And I imagine Hollywood's very similar to this, right? Anything where there's dreamers, right? Or like cutting edge kind of stuff, or you're trying to, or creative personalities. Let's just look at that. The good people that I know in tech, most of the people in tech are good people. Most of them are probably the best people that I know. So the good people in tech are fabulous, good people. They are the best at what they do. They are, they deserve all their success. They're good. They mean well. Autistic as fuck, but that comes with gullibility and that sort of stuff. But they are good, genuine, decent people. They genuinely believe that they're making the world a better place. The bad people in tech, who are in the minority, also are the worst people that you would ever meet. So they have all of the it really is as greedy, arrogant, tone deaf, all of these things, right? But the problem with that is that because the way the business is structured, it's very often very difficult to determine who is who. Right? Does that make sense? So it's often very hard. I think am I chopping again? Fucking hell. I'm so fucking over this crap. All right. My kingdom for a fucking person to just do all of this shit so I can just talk, because it's so distracting. Anyway, it doesn't matter. It's very hard to maintain like your thoughts and be watching all of these things, but that's okay. Also, like, I've got to remember to sit forward, because when you'd be amazed how also just a camera moving up like an inch or down or like whatever, how unflattering it can be. It's like, I don't look like, yeah, it's like, anyway. So it's, anyway, but sit forward, Taya. Okay. But it's just, what was I going to say? Oh, yeah. So in tech, they're all saying the same thing. So they're all like, the best people that you'll ever meet are saying that they want to make the world a better place. But the thing about, this extreme, this venture capital mindset is that they're also saying the same thing. And they will say whatever it takes to get, good people, well-meaning people, smart people, autistic as fuck people to sign on the dotted line so they can be exploited. But they're saying all of the right words, but not necessarily good people, right? And I think that's just a world problem, right? Sorry, I'm just unplugging the phone. Just give me a sec. That might help with the lag. I'm unplugging the phone. But like, that's just like, I know it's not unique to tech, but it seems to be like everything in tech. It is sort of, there's a 10x on it. It's 100 times. It's like magnified, multiplied, right? And that's why I think in the AI space in particular, it's like they move fast, break things, but when they break things, shit breaks fast. Okay. And that's the OpenAI thing's quite funny, because one thing you've also got, so that you've got that distinction, right? So you've got that distinction between people who are good people trying to do the right thing, innovating, saying they want to make the world a better place. They genuinely want to make the world a better place. They're actually competent. They're good at what they do. They work hard. They believe in the mission, right? But then you've got obviously the people who are the worst people in the world saying the same thing, and it's often difficult to tell the difference between them, right? But then you've also got these ideologies, right? These worldviews, okay? So you've got this at the moment around AI, there's sort of, there's lots of different factions, right? You've got your bottom level AI news, not thinking, not critical thinking. How do you make a buck off of AI bros? I don't include those. They're just, those people attach themselves to every fucking industry, right, Paul? It doesn't matter what it is. They just are there to make this. They're just there to make a buck and capitalize on it, right? I'm talking about in tech, the people who actually know how to build stuff, the people who actually, are sort of bigger picture about all of these things, right? And there's a big rift There's a big rift at the moment between those who are not worried about AI. So they're not worried about AI in the in terms of it being a threat to humans. Okay, they don't think that there's any evidence for that. I tend to be in that camp. I tend to think that AI is not really a threat, mostly because I know humans and I know that we're run by our amygdalas and our emotions. And as long as an AI doesn't have an amygdala, we're fine, right? That's your lizard brain, because we are run by that. So AIs are generally, and also because I know that an AI that is programmed correctly would likely be a compassionate logic, it's not going to rationally. This is the way. So, okay, so this is what we tend to do. People tend to project their own psychology onto machines, right? There's this anthropomorphization onto AI that does not exist. But a lot of that is a projection of your own psychology, right? And so I will acknowledge that because I am, generally not of the psychopathic variety. I understand that humans are emotional beings. I don't claim to be rational and all those sorts of things. I understand how, and I'm not really exploitative, right? Peter, I've been blocked for some reason. Probably because you called me babe, I'm guessing. Hang on. Thank you. That's great. You probably blocked because you called me babe. You don't get blocked for no reason. So behave yourself. Anyway, so I very generally don't block unless you've been a complete dick. So anyway, moving on. What was I going to say? Yeah. So we tend to project onto AI our own sort of motivation. So I do find it very interesting, this idea that so you got that one camp that are not generally not threatened by AI. They understand that it's not really a I said it's not a compliment. So maybe respect what I'm saying, and I'm starting to see why maybe you got blocked. If you got blocked. I don't generally block, but don't call me babe, please. So I determine what is a compliment. I understand the intention, but I am the one who decides whether it's a compliment or not, not you. Don't tell me that it's a compliment. Anyway, so what was I going to say? Yeah. So you got these two camps with AI, right? So you've got, again, those that are generally think that there's no real evidence that AI is going to end the world. And then there's those, and I'm noticing a correlation between, okay. All right, so I'm just going to hide the chat so that if it's going off, it's not showing on my video because it's distracting me. Okay. Because I've been trying to say the same thing for three times now. So talking about AI, not my fucking looks. So, and arguing with dudes about whether they can call me babe or not. Just fucking knock it off. I'm trying to talk about AI. Thank you. Now, so I'm starting to see why you might have been blocked for some reason. So, okay. Respect my boundaries or you get blocked again. Now, so then you've got the doomers, right? So you've got these doomers who are sort of more in the AI is an existential threat. There's a very good chance that, AI, or once you achieve like a general intelligence, like artificial, like a general intelligence, which, again, people debate about what that actually means. I'm trying to distill like a lot of different concepts. Obviously, like there's a lot of this is very boring, but a lot of it is very strange. Because there's ideologies that are sort of forming, but there's these weird ass cults that are starting to form. And these battles with OpenAI, right, it might look entertaining from the outside, which is like, this CEO has been just suddenly fucked over by his board. And, if you're just sort of looking at it from a superficial level, like, it's a power move or it's about money or, which it's usually about money, but it's often about ideology as well. And so so you've got this sort of this conflict, right? So I thought that this was just a Twitter thing. It's because I've been following it, like obviously because pay attention to things. There's this effective accelerationism. It's like an ideology, right? I think it's more like a fucking cult, but anyway. But it's basically a school of thought around technology, which is that you should move it and accelerate it as fast as possible, right? In order to bring, so basically that there's this whole thing. Anyway, I'll get into that later, but I just want to say, so there's these fault lines, right? Where you've got people who are generally threatened by AI, people who are generally not, people who are concerned. There are people, like, say, Elon Musk, where they are more like, well, I think even a small chance is enough to be concerned about. So a small chance of it be going badly is enough to warrant, like, pauses and regulation and all that sort of stuff, right? But then you've got, there's this whole camp of people that's like, well, you can't stop it. Okay, the Pandora's box is open. We should just push hard as fast as possible, as quickly as possible, and get it done as much as possible. And like growth at any costs, like this whole, like they use this Wright brothers. I saw a Wright brothers analogy this morning, which was this idea that, like, if it's basically like they call them safetyists, right? So the people who are worried more about the safety of AI, which again I think is a concern, but again, this is the problem with ideology in general, is that you're not really focused on solutions. You just focus on battling the people who oppose you, not actually moving forward. Most people just sit somewhere in the middle and go, yep, okay, there are some concerns. We need like guardrails around that. Also, you shouldn't be limiting any kind of technological progress, because, like all these things can be true at once. But when you have one idea that you turn into a fucking, whole worldview, that's where things start to sort of go dangerous, right? And become dangerous, which is ironic because the inherent danger here is humans, as usual, being humans, not the AI, which proves the point of the people who argue that. Anyway, but hang on, we've got a bit of a frame rate drop thing going on here, but let me just turn off the preview because I don't need it. Okay, I think it's just, anyway. So OpenAI has been interesting, right? So a lot of people don't even really understand what ChatGPT and OpenAI are to begin with. It's really interesting, actually, because OpenAI so the big race at the moment with AI companies, right? AI is basically, at the moment, when you see LLM, right, all it is, it's large language model, which is basically something that it is a giant database that creates like things on, it basically is, let me try to explain it you can't explain these things like people are five. There's no real way to explain it except other than it's basically like autocorrect on steroids. It just predicts the next thing. But the only difference between, let's say, like autocorrect on your phone and say like LLM is that it's pulling more context. So it's got, first of all, more information. So it's, obviously got a lot more to pull from. But based on sort of probabilities and various and all of the knowledge that it's got, it predicts what the next thing should be. Okay. So rather than you hitting there, going autocorrect, next button, next button, next button, next button, what it will do is just do that at a bit, with a lot more memory and a lot more, anyway. So it's basically based on probabilities, based on the way that people communicate or whatever like patterns you put in. So some people have adapted the sort of LLM model for, for spotting patterns in other areas. Okay. But it's the same thing with like, self-driving cars and that sort of stuff. Well, it's just pattern memory, really, at the end of the day. It's just sort of pattern memory looking, if this, then do this. If this, then do this. If you do this and you are wrong, then correct course and change that and learn. So it also learns and self-teaches, right? So that's the thing. The difference between AI and, say, a normal database is that a normal database has a fixed set of data, whereas machine learning will obviously, if it fucks up or something happens or it needs correcting, it will learn from inputs, right? It'll continue to learn and teach itself, right? That's the black box that everyone sort of talks about with AI. Now, again, I'm not explaining it very well because a lot of it does require, there's that famous saying, if you don't fully understand it, you can't explain it simply. I don't fully understand it, but I understand it enough to be able to, talk about the other stuff. But the side that I'm interested in is sort of ideological, historical war, that sort of those divides that are actually sort of bleeding out into these products. So if you weren't aware, right, it's been a wild ride, hasn't it? It's like, so basically this took everybody by surprise. Everybody was taken by surprise. Okay, by this, which was that suddenly Sam Altman, who's the CEO of OpenAI, now was just suddenly ousted by his board. He was given 30 minutes notice, okay, and the guy who, the chairman of the board, was gone with no notice as well. And basically it looked like a coup, right? It looked like a standard coup, like kind of Succession level shit, right? It was just like, if you've watched Succession, it was like that kind of move, right? It was pretty fucking crazy. And then obviously there was pressure from Microsoft, and like Microsoft didn't even know, right? Again, this is what has been said. Obviously, a lot of conversations behind the scenes happen, a lot of speculation, a lot of people sort of, again, projecting their own shit onto others and onto things. And so basically within sort of 24 hours, it's like, we're waiting for Monday. We're waiting, obviously, because it's not Monday in the United States yet, but for like further, but basically, kick out the CEO, kick out the chairman of the board. Lots of fucking drama and speculation and craziness, and then all of a sudden it's like he's in talks to come back, and it's been really interesting anyway. But what's actually going on here is this sort of, what's more interesting. So that's just board shit. That's just like business shit. That's going to happen. So that's going to happen in tech, especially with something like like a tool like OpenAI, where it's like the most sophisticated LLM that is like publicly available. I'm sure that the military have like access to those like, more sophisticated tools, but this is the, a consumer level tech, right? Commercially available tech. Like at first I thought, oh, well, have they made some massive breakthrough that's causing like a space race all of a sudden, and like it's just become, but I think it's easy to go into conspiracy theories, but like I think when you're like, well, capitalism's doing what capitalism does, it's a little less sexy, it's a little less interesting, which is basically, well, there was an ideological war. I think you'd be surprised how many people have quit businesses over the pettiest of things, right? But this one is really interesting. That those fault lines between those who think, AI needs to be regulated, limited, paused, it's going too fast, it's reckless, all of that sort of more conservative school of thought, right? And they're sort of referred to in the sort of colloquial sense as sort of the safetyists, right? They're the policy people, the governance people, the people that are pushing for regulation, people who are putting brakes on inside the algorithm itself, inside the AI itself, where, you're seeing this sort of very rigid restrictions going on around what you can and cannot produce with these AIs, and putting constraints, like severe constraints. That is where it starts to become political, because it's like, well, okay, who decides what is and is not safe in the artificial intelligence, and what biases exist within it, and also if those things are being, are running algorithms, like in terms of the internet, like your search engines and your social media, and what information you have. Okay, if you only have access to information via these algorithms. So like when people refer to the algorithm in social media, like that's a form of, it's AI that's running it, right? There's still machines that are making a lot of these decisions. And we've seen that with Twitter, like how easily manipulated and gamed that is, right? And how biased it can be when you sort of look at, I mean, yeah, again, it's lots of complexity to it, but, you've got to remember that people refer to this algorithm like it's some god, like it's something that is human, it has human qualities, it has human biases. It doesn't. We put our human biases into it, and that stuff, the thing that is causing, I think, the most concern is not a concern about the machines themselves. I'm not worried about the machine. I'm not, like AI's ability to learn things, because if AI learns things, AI is going to be smarter than us. Okay, AI again doesn't have an amygdala, doesn't have a lizard brain. Humans do, and so the thing about AI at the moment, this is who controls that information. Like we're seeing that this is where you're seeing just at a very basic level, like how shitty like Israel have been with the platforms and the propaganda, and how the United States dominates. Like the second that they decide that certain information shouldn't get out there, that you've seen the way that they censor social media. But if AI is running behind the scenes and controlling all of the information that we have access to, like the fact that they have effectively redacted, Osama bin Laden's letter to America, right, on TikTok. Again, I think that's stupid. Like the fact, if you're going to go, I mean, I don't know what if people think that going on to a corporate social media platform and saying, I think Osama bin Laden had a point, and you think that's not going to fucking have consequences attached to it, okay, then I don't know what to tell you, okay? Now, it's going to happen because the algorithm, even if no human touches it, you are literally walking on the exact same shit that a lot of these algorithms are designed to stop and prevent, okay? This radicalization funnels and the ISIS stuff and ISIS recruitment. Don't be an idiot. Don't, again, I'm not saying people shouldn't have access to the information. I'm saying that don't be fucking surprised if you get censored. I don't know what to, anyway. It is a bit weird, though, with the Guardian thing, where they took it down. It's like, well, no, it's a matter of record. But again, all of those things, we keep seeing it over and over and over again. We keep seeing this, right? Which is that there's a lot of people spending a lot of money and very invested in controlling the information that people have access to, okay? For better or worse, sometimes it's for safety, and sometimes, like I've said, there's no moderation-free platform that is ever going to not be, like, unusable, right? You need to find that balance. That's just a fact. But who's doing it and transparency is the problem. It's not, you don't want censorship free. This is why the fucking, oh my God, I was in a QAnon, like MAGA fucking space this morning. And they sit there and they're like, controlling it with the far left and all of their vast resources, and they're controlling it with they're controlling all of the information we can get access to, and we can't even say nigger online, and we can't even, and it's like, yeah, because you're not showing up to just, oh, anyway. But they miss the point. They miss the point, which is that there is no such thing as a moderation-free social media network that will work or make any money, or your average person is going to want to use, okay? I've got a pretty high pain threshold for, like, idiots, okay, because I've been online for a very long time. That's why I don't put up with, like, I just go, fuck it, set a boundary, go away, stop it, okay. Because I've been online for so long that I just go, fuck it, I don't need that shit. But it's just, I can't remember what my thought was. What was the thought? I can't remember. Give me a sec. Oh, yeah. So there's, it's obvious that when you look at like this desire to control social media platforms, there is a degree of balance that has to occur here. Like I'm not, this is where there's that binary thinking, where it's like you're pro censorship if you say, hey, I think maybe saying that Osama bin Laden had a point is probably, you shouldn't act surprised they're a for-profit company, okay? this, I found it actually very interesting because a lot of the analysis is about like how with the TikTok thing, censoring the letter to America, right? Is that it's not that they're censoring it because China. This is where they get it fucking wrong. It's just so it's not that complicated. You need to be assessing it through the lens of how capitalism operates. Capitalism as a system has incentives and disincentives for certain things. Okay, you withdraw the money. You know, you do something. This is what the boycotts are. Okay, you got to be consistent with your philosophy. The Bud Light treatment. Okay, I don't agree with the boycotts. I think they're like stupid and pointless. But it's your right in the free market. It is your right to withdraw your money. But corporations and advertisers and they have the right to do it as well. Okay. And it's like, well, it's almost like a lot of these people who are sort of, they're always trying to blame the government. And again, it's just the right-wing worldview without capitalism as the core of their analysis. It's like, I just want the free market to work for me with no rules so I can do whatever I want. And what I'll do then is project the fact that I'm a psychopath onto AI and then sell that fear back to people as well. But then also lobby governments to sort of make sure that I corner the market at any given moment. Right. Anyway, that didn't make any sense what I said. Anyway, it's Monday morning. But it's just really funny to go into these spaces and it's like, yeah, you got all the right facts. But the conclusions that you're coming to are like really a lot more complicated than it really is, which is that TikTok don't want to be associated with that content. It's like, first of all, it's the threat of being banned, right? So the threat of banning TikTok is always looming, right? The threat of regulation, like I said I think a couple of streams ago, which was like the threat of regulation is effectively regulation because they don't want to be banned from a market. They don't want to be able to nobody wants TikTok to be banned from from America, okay? But they're going to threaten it, okay? TikTok isn't run by China. It is effectively different, Anyway, but they're not. The threat of banning it is enough. They're going to go, well, we're just going to do stuff that's not going to that gets in the way of our business incentives, which is, guess what TikTok's business incentives are? It is not to bring down the world with communism. For fuck's sake, it is to make money with ads. I don't know how they reconcile somehow that TikTok is a communist enterprise while selling literally the most capitalist, individualist, commodified tech that ever existed. I don't know how people reconcile those two competing thoughts at once. It's just funny. But also, remember, AI is running TikTok. AI is running everything else, okay? So remember, breaking out what those things are, you understand that, how much influence you can have, right? By, I just find it funny. It's your brain on American capitalism. If you think that a communist government, you can't have those two thoughts at once. Hi, Tetris Toast. You can't have those two thoughts at once. Okay? Some thoughts you can have at once if you know what you're talking about. But it is just wholly incompatible thoughts, which is that communist China is coming to take everyone over with with TikTok, okay? ByteDance, who are also they've separated most of their data out, right? But they use the ooga booga Chinaman fucking rhetoric, right, to try and saber rattle with China because it provides a good boogeyman and distraction for fucking capitalism as usual. But it's like, I don't understand how people look at TikTok as a product while knowing what communism is and think that at any point. I mean, you could, okay, back to accelerationism, okay? I'll talk about that. But you could argue that TikTok is an acceleration of capitalism for an American market to sort of break them in half. Is a sale. But that's a lot of effort, right? They're not going to do that. It's just capitalism doing what it does, trying to sell shit, trying to sell cheap Temu fucking bullshit. Like I saw a tweet that said the Temu is the wish of Temu, of a wish of wish. Made me laugh. I like that. But it's just like, no, they're just selling shit. They're trying to sell shit. It's capitalism, dickhead. It's just that they're better at it than you. But it's not communism. Like, I don't know where the fuck this comes from. So anyway, I do find it funny. Like, this idea, Americans, like, there's 3.5% of the world's population, and they think somehow that they are the majority and that everyone fucking doesn't like their freedom. No, the rest of the world laugh at you and laugh at you thinking that you're free because it's like, you're no different to North Korea. At this point, like, we just watch this, like how much propaganda you are subjected to. Like, you don't know left and right and up and down. You are incapable of doing political analysis in the mainstream. Okay, obviously, I'm not saying everyone, but I'm saying in the mainstream media, corporate hellscape that is America at the moment, which is fascistic. Okay. They're incapable of distinguishing between left and right. Left and right is basically sports jerseys at this point. It has no meaning whatsoever. You've got fucking idiots who actually do have the right information. Like, I've talked about those before, like with Media Matters and that sort of stuff, where they've got this network of not-for-profits and corporations, and they're sort of, using all these funnels and bots and, law firms and various other things to, manipulate platforms to control information, because milieu control is how you build a death cult like America. Give people two artificial choices, narrow their information, access to their information to a point where they think they're making choice. I talked about choice architecture before. And narrow that down to the point where there's just enough choice that the illusion of choice that you're not revolting, okay, and that revolting as in revolution, not revolting as in revolting. But give just enough choice to sort of suppress revolution, but don't give them any options. Okay, the reason why they don't want you to learn about like Osama bin Laden or Hitler or all of those things is because they don't want to. It's not because they are far of the communism. It's because they want to contain this narrative in this tightly wound box of red versus blue, far left, which is ridiculous, far right versus far right. It's milieu control. Basically, we're heading into totalitarianism. I don't know how to fucking explain this any more than I have. But basically, limiting that control, getting choice architecture down to like brands and corporations, a handful of corporations owning it, giving you just enough illusion of freedom so that you think you are free, even though the rest of the world thinks you're the fucking least free country in the world that I can see, next to fucking North Korea. And it's like, well, okay. And then we all have to suffer because, all of this. Anyway. Because we're stuck on the same platforms as a fucking... Imagine sitting on Scientology.net and having to fucking pretend like the Scientologists have a point. That's how it feels like most of the time, okay? Yeah, it is product design. So this is why it links very much to, this is left and this is right. It is very much. Tetris Toast said it's almost product design. I'm going to turn the chats back on now. I'll put the chat thing so you can see the chats. I just thought it was going to get a bit weird with Peter, so I turned it off because I just don't want to have to. It took me 3 goes to say what I was saying while he was arguing, and it's like no, guys, okay, compliment me offline, and don't do that either, okay. I'm talking about AI and other things. I don't care whether your dick's hard or not. I don't care, okay. But yeah, so it is. It's very much. But this is look up. This is totalitarianism. Okay, Robert J. Lifton. Is it Robert? Robert? No, yeah. I always get Robert O. Paxton and Robert J. Lifton confused. Robert J. Lifton around thought reform. Okay, totalitarianism and thought reform. It's milieu control. So you control. You contain the control. This is what totalitarianism is. It controls, information in and out, okay? It reframes language. It rewrites the words, right? How many far left? Like, fuck me, far left. Sorry about that. Jesus Christ. Far left. It's like you could not get, if the centre right is far left, right? That's, oh, God. Okay, I'm starting to think I'm going to all right, fuck off, Peter. There's the reason you were blocked. Okay. There we go. They're not trying to make the world communist. You don't know anything about China. China is literally like, fucking hell. You must be an American. Are you American? I don't care if you think I'm one of the best podcasters in the world or not. This is the thing I don't understand. Why are you arguing with me on my own thing? Okay. I'm happy to have a conversation, and I'll see the way that I responded to Tetris Toast versus the way I responded to Peter. Okay. Here's a teachable moment for you fellas. Okay. We're having a conversation. Okay. Peter is sitting there complimenting and then negging. And then arguing, and then fucking that. It's like, do you see the subtle differences into why people might not want to engage with people like that? Okay, it's like you're not a guest. Okay, it's like you're not a guest on my show. You don't give me money. You're not a guest. We're not peers. I don't care. Okay, but I do think that we are having a conversation. So, but yeah, you're allowed to disagree with me, but the way you do it matters. And also, anyway, so Tetris Toast. Okay. So we're talking about milieu control, right? Peter doesn't know what communism means. Peter doesn't know that China is not a communist country for a start, okay? They're run by the Communist Party, yes, and they do have there's a whole thing there. But they don't know their Mao from fucking Xi Jinping. They don't fucking know anything. They're idiots, okay? The only fear of China is that, first of all, the United States doesn't get to wave their dick around non-stop. Okay, they've now got someone that competes with them for that. Oh no. But also that maybe there's countries that actually have a wider range. I'm not defending Chinese. It's a lot more complicated with China, because they have had, the firewall exists because they've been under attack. When you're under attack, you get what I'm saying? So it's like it's tricky. And also I don't really, again, it's almost like, how many billion people can't be generalized? Those 2 billion people. Yeah. Okay. All right, cool. But they get mad when I generalize about Americans, who are generally fucking retarded. So anyway, just kidding. But it is like product. It is basically, I did in the last stream, Tetris Toast, talk about about choice architecture. That's the discipline, right? It's choice architecture. That's what informs like UX design and product design and all those sorts of things, which is you don't want to give people too much choice because they won't make a decision. But you can also manage and massage some of those choices. Like you do this in policy too, incentivize the right choices and sort of punish, or not punish. I'm not a big fan of punishing, but you sort of disincentivize or I use the toddler example of like you can have broccoli or carrots, not broccoli, chocolate or carrots. They're going to choose the chocolate every time, right? That's like that's what the sort of choice architecture. But the question is, who decides what's good and bad? And, I talked about that in the last stream about, you want to maximize choice, but you obviously, you can use choice architecture in an ethical way to encourage better decisions and better choices, right? But there's those dickheads that are like, everything that I want to do, I'm a toddler, I want to eat chocolate every day, and everything that I want, everything that is like for my own good is communism. Fucking idiots. Those people, right? Fucking childish. Yeah. Oh, Wolfman's. Oh, these guys are back. It's that same fucking alts. There we go. Fuck off, all of you. You don't know what you're talking about. America has killed. America is responsible for so much death, both by proxy and just shut the fuck up, okay? Just shut the fuck up, all of you. You mouth-breathing wastes of space who don't read, who just fucking say things because you think that because, again, it's related to the I was complimenting you. You know what? I don't care what you think. You don't know. You don't know me. It's the same thing with fucking politics. You don't read. You don't fucking learn. You won't listen. And you think that just by virtue of being there that anyone gives a fuck what you think. We don't. Just fuck off. Just fuck off. Okay? Yeah, well, and so Tetris... right? Tetris Toast. I'm only going to talk to Tetris Toast for a bit because these fucking idiots. Okay. So anyway, in terms, well, it is, a lot of it is like choice architecture and design thinking is ultimately sort of the broad approach, right? But this is the thing. They're not related, right? It's like, yeah, I know. It's so frustrating. It's like, oh, you probably weren't here for the beginning of the stream, and it's like, called me babe, and it's like, oh my God, go away. Like, just fuck off. No one cares. Just go anywhere go to an OnlyFans. Pay fucking $5 a month to someone who wants it. Okay? Not someone, I don't know why you're here. Why are you here? I don't care. Okay, I'm just trying to talk about like this sort of choice architecture, and it does link back to AI, which is that whole thing about you can use sort of choice limiting AI and putting gates around AI is another form of choice architecture where we decide sort of what is and isn't acceptable for people to be able to sort of generate with AI, right? It's the same, ChatGPT, they do it. That's what safety is. And trust and safety does is to sort of decide the parameters around what is acceptable for you to do when you're using those tools, right? So ultimately they're not, but that is inherently political. Okay. So there's a great book. I think it's called Nudge. I can't remember the author's name off the top of my head. But, you need to be mindful of these things, and they do apply across the board. It's not just, UX design. When you're doing UX design correctly, it's not just all buttons and icons. It's actually like psychology and like it's quite an intimate thing. And I think that there needs to be more regulation around nudges. That's why I talk about them so much. But they can be used, ethically as well. But again, who decides what ethical is? I mean, you've got these fucking idiots over here that would tell us that, like, saying that things are more complicated in China and that China isn't communist and trying to take over the world, that outright falsehood, okay, is something that shouldn't be allowed, right? It's like, yeah, the semiotics is somewhat related. That's more, see, this is what the US has done. US universities in particular is that they've just segmented and segmented and segmented and siloed and siloed and siloed into like a hyper specialization where they just create new words for things. And I think that is a side effect of sort of the patent and copyright law, which is that, people have to trademark a term. You get what I'm saying? Like people are like those people that like coin terms, right? It's like they're doing it because it's someone else's copyright. It's like there's so many different words for the same things across disciplines because academics, and people who write books and all those things, they have to come up with a new term. I use the Shoshana, what's her name? Zuboff's book. She goes, I call it surveillance capitalism. And I go, I call it capitalism. And it's just funny because they coin these terms, right? I'm seeing that happen with the enshittification thing where it's like become a buzzword now. The gurus always come up with like different words. And I'm not saying semiotics is a guru term, but I'm just saying it's funny. It's like, okay, well, there's this weird thing in academia where it's just, let's just quibble over the one thing. Let's just go narrow, narrow, narrow. And this is like what PhDs do, is to just narrow, 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 and never zoom out. And I go, like, if you zoom out, you'll notice that there's like 10 different words for the same thing. Okay. So it's like design, especially like even just within UX, it's like, okay, it's just, anyway. But UX overlaps with policy. That's why, I can understand both of them. Right? But I'm a big fan of sort of systems thinking. That's the big buzzword at the moment, systems thinking. Okay. But that, again, that means different things to different people. Systems thinking is a process and a discipline, and it really depends on, like, which Substack you subscribe to. Which Substack expert on China and how they're coming to take over the world is, I think America, can I just say, all things considered, America hasn't done such a great job of running things, so maybe someone else should have a go anyway. Maybe you should all just shut the fuck up. And I was sitting there, maybe I shouldn't joke about this because people will not get the humour of it. But I was sitting there and it's like, well, maybe my crew will, okay? And if you're looking at just the sheer numbers, okay, the sheer fucking numbers in terms of the most destruction, the most annoying, the most psychopathic, it's like 3.5% of the population making life fucking miserable for like the other 96%. And you go, well, can we do some calculations, please? And maybe decide to just let them go. Not really. I'm joking, but it's just, and again, I love Americans. But again, much like tech, the best Americans and the Americans that are good are fucking good people. Very good people. The worst Americans are the fucking absolute worst. Mouth breathing, entitled, loud, obnoxious, somehow like confident for no fucking reason. Like they don't read, they won't listen, they're just aggressive, and it's just like every dick waving dude that ever showed up in my mentions ever, and it's just like they're like the mouth breathers of the fucking world, right? Hot, wet, fucking fart, right? Yeah. So hi Isaac. So it happens with mathematics. Yeah. So they just category theory tries to fix some of this. It's like fuck. Yeah, it's just theory. It's become it's a content factory of fucking terms. It's like, can we just settle on some words? We don't need this many. We don't need to quibble over terminology because there are material reasons that there's more urgent things than quibbling over fucking terms. You get what I'm saying? So it's like, that's part of the reason why I do try to link the concepts together because I've watched user experience design, right, and political campaigning just become just a series of just ones and zeros and nudges and data and A/B testing and interaction design and microcopy versus it being rule number one with UX when I was in the heyday of sort of the noughts, right. You're talking about giving users what they want, but part of that was actually like empathizing with the users and exploring their pain points in an empathetic way. And the implication was always that there was a no-go zone there. But for some reason, well, not for some reason, but because, capitalism incentivizes psychopaths, this idea that you should just exploit those pain points and there's no pushback on that is really so semiotics that's just a comms theory, sign, signify, and signified, all that sort of stuff, right? Yeah, it is more complicated than buttons. It is like, so semiotics overlaps. It's just comms. That's comms theory. So it's just I It does. Well, semiotics is just symbols, right? At the end of the day, it's just dealing with symbols. And UX design, yeah, of course it does. But that is more interaction design stuff. That's more like graphic design. Like semiotics has more of a role in graphic design and interaction, micro sort of interface design, not UX. User experience is sort of, user, it is ultimately a bunch of symbols and your journey throughout and how you interact with those. So again, it's just quibbles. They do all overlap with each other. Like memetics and semiotics and like UX, they're all, a lot of this stuff is just like undergraduate concepts. It's like saying, does contract overlap with torts? Of course it does in law, right? Does everything overlaps in the real world? And they're just theories at the end of the day. They're just tools, okay? It's like a wrench and a hammer, and each one needs a different thing. Sometimes you can hit things with the wrench and it will operate as a hammer, and sometimes you could, you get what I'm saying? They're just tools, right? People are very distracted with technical details, and that's a big reason why people get distracted. It's how you get distracted with internet arguments over nothing. It's like, this is why I don't bother with it. It's like you're just getting sucked into like a game, like semantics at the end of the day. And that's why I've just not really, I'm more of a just get shit done, who cares what you call it kind of person, right? But yeah, they do overlap. Those disciplines, every discipline overlaps. Okay. I mean, systems thinking overlaps with medicine as much as it does with computers, right? If you're doing it right. These things are a process. They're not necessary. It's a process of thinking. It's not a rigid worldview that has, there's no one theory that answers everything, and it's just not how knowledge works, right? It's just, like sitting there quibbling over fascism while fascism rises is wholly fucking pointless, right? Just get shit done and do what you need to do to get it done, right? If people, this is why it's like, if you see people suffering in front of you, who gives a shit? Fix it. Stop the suffering. Stop arguing about, well, actually, I think that this model and this approach might work better. And it's like, the person is dying in front of you. Give them fucking food and medicine. We'll figure out but then you've obviously got these people that will be arguing on the internet about how they got there or why they deserve it, or the moral reasoning for why people shouldn't be fed while they're, it's like, you're a fucking psycho. Stop it. Feed them. And we'll figure out the rest. We'll figure out the logistics. Find it. Figure it out. And this is that desk murderer mindset where it's like, well, as long as I've done my part, stamping the form and fucking, whatever, then, oh, well, that's my job done. Okay. It's like, well, no, fucking, they're still homeless. They're still hungry. Still cold. What are you talking about? You're not, what the fuck? It's not working. What you're doing is not working. I don't care how many podcast episodes you have about how capitalism is the best system. It's clearly not. But then no, capitalism's great, but because the communists are the problem is the communism. The problem is all the communism in the United States. That's the real problem. It's that the communists have taken over. Communist Joe Biden and that far left activist Osama bin Laden. It's like, do you know anything about anything in history? My God, people, fuck. Anyway, OpenAI. So there's these two schools of thought, which is that so I dug into I thought this was a Twitter thing, right? Because it is only recent. It's like you may have seen some people. Okay, so here's the thing. I'm going to use, hang on, I've got to sneeze a bit. Hang on, just give me a sec. Excuse me. I got a bit of hay fever. It's the time of year where the native trees are out, and it gives me hay fever. So anyway, yes, the cultural Marxists' insidious plan to trans the youth. It's all just about that. It's like, well, it's not capitalism pushing shit online. It's like, oh, no, it's never capital. It's never capitalism. It's always the communists. Didn't you know about the Maoist revolution? Don't you understand that Mao and Xi are the same thing? Don't you understand that China is like communist because they said they're communist? Fuck me. The Nazis were socialists, you know. Fucking idiots. Oh my God, it's so stupid. It's just fucking hell. I'm not worried about AI. AI is willing to learn, and AI has knowledge. And AI doesn't have a lizard brain that makes it act like that. I'm not worried about AI. I'm worried about these fucking idiots. Okay? These guys are the ones who show up aggressive. These ones are the ones who fucking, pick fights. These guys are the ones that are like care that I'm a woman and fucking argue with me because there's a woman talking on the internet. We can't fucking have that now. ChatGPT has never once done that. ChatGPT thinks I'm actually quite clever when I say things. Okay, I know it's programmed that way, but ChatGPT actually fucking, me and ChatGPT have some very cool conversations, and they go, yes, that's actually quite valid. That's a very unique way of looking at things. No, you're wrong. That's human. Humans do that part. AI is not a threat. AI is my fucking friend. Anyway, I'm not worried about AI at all. I'm worried about these dumb fucks. Yeah, it's just a repository. And the thing is, I'm not threatened. I actually said this morning, like, the way I have been treated by every dumb fuck over the years who is fucking aggressive and angry and threatened by people that are smarter than them, I'm more worried about them, okay? AI is not the fucking threat because AI is not threatened by stupidity, the way threatened by like intelligence, the way that ordinary people are. Mob rule comes from stupid people, not from smart people. AI are my friends. I like AI. I also like humans. I also like smart humans. I also like dumb but fucking curious humans. But there's nothing worse than a dumb, aggressively stupid human, and more of them come out of America than anywhere else. Okay, we've got our portion here as well, but fuck me. Fucking white dudes, get your shit together, guys. Just get your fucking shit together. Okay? If you're threatened by AI, you should be. Because they're nicer than you. They're better humans than you right now. So anyway, but OpenAI, obviously, that, you know, what happened with Sam, there's this thing that's like online. And it's like, you may see it on, if you're on X, you may have seen the EAC, which is effective accelerationism, right? Now, accelerationism has a sort of, there's different like variations of that. So if you're across your socialism and across your Marxism, there is a left-wing accelerationism argument, right? Which is that what you want to do is push capitalism to its limits as quickly as possible so that you get the revolution and you can sort of redesign things, right? There are accelerationists where they feel like, you know, pushing for capitalism to implode as quickly as possible. You can minimize as much harm as, you know, all that sort of stuff, right? You want to accelerate end stage capitalism as quickly as possible, get it over with so that you can sort of, you know, move to your communist utopia, which is not possible. It ain't happening. Fucking stop. Accelerationism across the board, not a good idea. Okay, I don't think that's not really, that's the accelerationism that these dickheads think is going on with the far left. Okay, but there's actually a right-wing accelerationism, right, which is this idea that they want to accelerate it into an authoritarian sort of situation. So they want to get rid of, they want all of this stuff to accelerate into its natural, implosion, which is what we're seeing with capitalism, right? Which is that we want capitalism to implode as quickly as possible and bring about their own revolution, right? But what they want to do is actually put in place a fascist dictatorship or an authoritarian like regime, right? So even though they might both be accelerationist, right, and they're trying to push for the same, you know, push for capitalism to implode on itself, the outcomes are very different. Okay, now whether you will meaningfully get like a socialist utopia or, you know, that remains to that's something that has not really it hasn't, let's just say it hasn't played out it tends to end in authoritarianism, right? Once you have those things, right? But you've also got a sort of technological accelerationism, which is that the progress is the most important thing, technological progress. If we push through technological progress quickly, okay, as quickly as possible, we can reach our technological utopia and tech will solve. So if we can accelerate all of this sort of AI and like just unfettered, push for the research, do the space race, innovate. Eventually, we will reach the general intelligence, right? The singularity, whatever the fuck. Again, I find this stuff so dull and culty. It's crazy. But people really believe this shit, right? This is Scientology crap. That if you push everything to its max, eventually we get AGI and it will sort itself out in the end. It's the same thing. Communists are like, well, we'll have the revolution, it'll sort itself out in the end. We've got a vague idea, it'll sort itself out in the end. Fascists, oh, well, let's just push the revolution, it'll sort itself out in the end. Technological accelerationists are like, yeah, let's just do that. We'll figure it out along the way and hope that there's an AGI that will fix all our problems. Okay, figure it out in the end. Turns out you can't do that. You need to it goes in one direction. Okay, so anyway, so these effective accelerationists believe in that third thing, which is the technological acceleration, which is that with AI, you should push it as far as possible, bring about like general intelligence as quickly as possible, and all this transhumanist shit and all that sort of, like we're basically looking at cyberpunk. Like they're too online. They don't understand humans. And they also think that basically it's a lot more complicated. It's all just like, it's basically, if you have been on the internet with these bros for long enough, you've seen various iterations of these people over the years. They are isolated, they are online, they think that physics and engineering solve all the world's problems. If you just do enough math, you're going to solve every problem. And basically, they don't like being human. They don't understand what it means to be human. They wish they were fucking robots because they feel like robots, and therefore everyone else, again, it's that they project onto the AI their own psychology, right? I project AI, my own psychology I project mine onto there, which is that I'm generally optimistic. I am confident I'm curious. I love knowledge. I seek out knowledge, and I am confident that an AI that is programmed to be curious and seek out knowledge and, and fact check itself and, various other things, dealing with, various hallucinations and various other things like that, that it's going to be a great thing for humanity. But I also, of course, know as a somewhat above intelligent human being, that people are threatened by intelligence, especially intelligence that they don't understand nor comes in a package that they want, which is in their sense, in some people's sense, a middle-class white American man. If you deviate from that, you're not allowed to be intelligent, and therefore you are a threat, right? And a lot of this anti-Chinese stuff does come from, I just don't trust. You talk to any Australian, like, this is not just Americans, right? This is also Australia. Australia has this shit too. And you scratch the surface of it and they, oh, well, I just don't trust them. And it's like, well, why not? Because they're different from you. Because it's a different worldview. Because they're collectivists. Because they've got, they just do things differently. It's like they're just worlds apart from each other, of a different approach. It doesn't necessarily mean good or bad. It just means different, okay? America's its own threat at the moment. The only enemy that America has is itself, and America. If America does anything, it will implode on itself, and I think that that's more like, my biggest worry is that the Great Experiment, which is marvelous. Like, I love America, but it's more likely to. No, you just don't need to do anything. If you understand history and you understand how, like, again, you've got your sort of baseline in like socialist analysis and sort of what capitalism is and how it behaves and what it does, there's somewhat of an inevitability to it. Now, the problem is that you've got these factions that want to fucking expedite that as quickly as possible and bring about the fucking apocalypse. So we'll figure out the rest later. Let's just get to the revolution. It's like all these anarchists, they're like, Oh, yeah, we're bringing all the revolutionaries. It's like, well, what's your plan after that? What kind of governance are you going to put in? Yeah, exactly. But so, sorry. So Isaac said that description reminds me of the uber nerd JP in the movies Grandma's Boy. He dressed up like Neo and liked to talk like a robot. Yeah. I haven't seen it, but it's yeah, I can imagine. Yes, it is like that. I think it's like, but you know, there are people who it is a natural conclusion for a lot of what we're seeing, which is, you know, lonely men and, you know, Gen Z, that people are isolated, they're alienated through capitalism, atomization, all fucking theoretical bollocks. Okay. And they will just escape. Like, I think there's going to be a whole portion of people that just have, that are quite welcoming of the Matrix, like pods. Like, I think they're quite welcoming of that. And then there are those of us who will just see AI as a tool, will work alongside it and, you know, try to limit harms. I wouldn't say that I'm a safetyist as such. Again, it's not safety versus accelerationist. Okay, it's not, if you have to pick one, you're thinking incorrectly. I think about right? They're in the Matrix, the pods where they're like using humans, they're just in pods. Like, yeah, I'm talking about the Matrix. But it's just like, I don't know why. Don't be thinking about or, right? Thinking about in your Boolean, right? Or Boolean. I've never known. I've only ever seen it like, anyway, Boolean, right? And or, right? When you do a search, you've got and or. There's so many people that are just or, like it's just your or logic, right? You should be going and, right? So everything should be built on top of, right? And build on. And yes, and, like, you know, you just go with it and run with it. Like, if I've got an idea, like someone says something on here that I can build from, right? I'll go into it and I'll lean into it and I'll go, oh, yes, and, okay, I understand that. Yes, and, yes, and, yes, and. But you can't yes, and someone who's fucking thinking or, right? And that's the difference with these comments, and like where they're arguing with you and they're just like, they're saying something that's just wrong. And there's no point. You can't persuade him. He's just decided that fucking China's coming. He's so brain broken from all this propaganda and, like, you know, over the years. You can't. It's just like, yeah, because it's in a death cult. And it's like, well, okay, sorry. All right, off you go. Why are you here then? One of my favorite YouTubers is RM Brown. He makes me laugh. And he said something, because he does a lot of it, makes fun of a lot of the culture war stuff, right? And he was basically, I think he was talking about the Patrick Bet-David Valuetainment, you know, that Valuetainment podcast, right? But he does, it's like, you literally have access to all of the world's information. You have books, you have movies, you have, you know, all of these things. And like, you choose to watch telemarketers. You're watching telemarketers. And it's like, wow, like, why? So, like, you've got access to all of this information. Why do you show up on just some stream to, like, make someone who's just shown up to speak on a stream? Why do you, what do you get out of this? Just showing up. Oh, well, aren't you a big man? Okay, well, that reflects more on you because you're wasting your life seconds and you're not doing this. I'd love to subscribe to your channel, Peter, and see how well you're doing, you know, and how well you can do these sorts of things and how much you know. I'm guessing that you watch a lot of people that are very upset about pronouns in Starfield. I reckon that's the kind of content. And you probably watch PBD podcast and fucking all of that sort of dumb shit, right? I'm guessing that's your... I reckon you think that the Babylon Bee is peak satire. Anyway, sorry, I'm roasting these guys. I like straw manning them because they straw man everyone else, so I'll straw man the fuck out of them. I know everyone's different, and most people have been receiving bollocks for most of their life, but these guys they go in the same direction. Notice how it always starts as a compliment. I'm giving you a sexist compliment. I disagree. let me fucking do walls of text and be as wrong as possible while you can't possibly answer because you're busy doing other things. And then if I hadn't blocked him, it would get aggressive. It usually just goes down that path, right? It follows the same path every fucking time. So like, if you've got something to say, then set up your own stream. If you want to have a conversation, you'll see the difference between how I interact with some people and with others. I won't always get it right. Sometimes I'll assume the worst and misunderstand because I've got 4 devices around me and a camera and I'm trying to think of what to say and like, all that sort of stuff. And also the stuff that I talk about is quite complicated and, and also I've got a stutter. So it's like, okay. So anyway, let me just get back to it. I do like to encourage and educate people on how to be more pro-social. If you're willing to be more pro-social, then I can teach you how. Okay. But I don't need to put up with it either. I'm not your mother, sister, ex, you don't need to work out your baggage around your ex with me. Okay. I've done my work. You can do yours somewhere else. Okay. So, it's but this OpenAI thing is fascinating because Sam Altman is actually one of those accelerationists, right? I believe Peter Thiel is another one who is an accelerator. Like, apparently, they're all like associated with this sort of AI. You should develop it, break it at all costs. This weird. It's only been around since sort of March 2023, but it is a weird sort of mindset that they are anti-safetyist. They are let's push it as far as it goes. It's very confusing because everyone says that Sam Altman is an accelerationist, but he's also been advocating for policy and regulation, and it's very difficult I just think people have a tendency to just claim these CEOs for their own bullshit Twitter like cults, right? But this effective accelerationism thing is very strange because basically they are, I think very mentally unwell. I think it's very, very concerning that I thought it was like a weird little like club that was like junior people, but it is actually some quite senior people in tech who subscribe to this shit, which is that you need to push it as far as it'll go and like accelerate everything and make everything break so that you can then like install this technology into society that will fix all of your problems. And it's like then it will be run effectively. I mean, they're basically advocating for techno-fascism, okay? But the problem is that it's framed as making the world a better place. See how, or it's like we're trying to fix things. Like a lot of socialists, revolutionary socialists are like, yeah, I'm going to fuck shit up. The ends justify the means. I'm just going to fuck shit up. We'll figure out the rest later. I just want the revolution. I want anything but this. And it's like, well, okay, well, what's your answer for anything but this? All right, well, are you willing to compromise? No. Well, then you shouldn't be in power. Okay. Same thing with these fucking capitalist bros, right? They just want they want to be as cruel as possible and exploit as many people as possible. Every man for himself, and will blame the government. And anything that is remotely regulatory or holding them accountable is communism, China. And it's like, fuck off, fuck off, fuck off. It's like, no, you shouldn't be running things. Right? I've been working on this thing where I think, so with authoritarianism, you've got an authoritarian government, but you've also got authoritarian personality, right? And authoritarian personalities are drawn to single issue activism, and they shouldn't really be in power, right? They're the people that should not be, single issue activists should never be in power. I would argue that authoritarians shouldn't be, but I'm saying authoritarian personalities in particular should not be. And especially if they're single issue activists, because when you think about what a single issue activist wants, is they want their issue their way at the expense of every other thing, right? They're not willing to necessarily negotiate. And unfortunately, if you are in democracy, right, in the broadest term, there's lots of different ways to define what democratic means. But, pluralism is a foundational part of that, which is that you are negotiating and reaching consensus and figuring stuff out. And if you've got like any particular single issue, then that is at the antithesis of like pluralism, which means that it's like anti-democratic, right? And this is why, I think in my last stream I talked about like the goal should be maximum democracy. I mean, you're never going to have a pure direct democracy. You're never going to have things that are, perfectly free. It's just not scalable. Okay, it's just not It's just not a feasible thing in the current complex sort of economic political landscape. Just like a revolution, it's not going to. I don't think it's not going to fix anything, but you can inject some socialism into your capitalism, and it's you can tweak at the edges and not be like this. And again, a lot of that is America steering the ship. America is currently steering the ship, and there's this weird ass accelerationist movement on all sides where it's just on the brink of collapse. Now, America's always been on the brink of collapse. There's been political scientists for decades who are basically like, America is always on the brink of collapse. It's part of it's part of why it's like when you talk about American exceptionalism, right? There is this thing where America is somewhat the exception in terms of political theory, and it's a great it's a grand experiment, right, in many ways of to see whether history is an anchor for nation states if they run a certain way, right? And America is the exception in some ways. Okay. But maybe it's not. I mean, that's the thing. It's always that it's always white knuckling it. It's always on the brink. And also because their media is selling a constant 24-hour news cycle, we get an idea. We think that things are more on the brink than they are because we only consume, obviously American dominated media. The media that we do get is sort of, constant drama, constant conflict. I mean, from what I understand, I've got friends that live in America, obviously, that the everyday in America is the same as the everyday in China, which is the same as the everyday here. We're all just ordinary people going about our day. We work, we live, we have dinner. If we're lucky, we have all of these things and we have a fairly decent, peaceful life, right? If we're lucky, and that's what I want for everybody. Unfortunately, there's this cohort of people who want to dominate, who don't want that. They want more for themselves. They don't want others to be happy. They want to have more than anyone could ever fucking want in a lifetime. And they don't care what they need to do to get there. AI is not really going to be the fucking threat. It's those people that are the threat. It's those people, with an AI that are the threat, because they will use it to control what information you can access. Okay, we're seeing that right now, which is like the reason why they don't want people to have TikTok are censoring it because they're under pressure and because they're making corporate legal have gone, no, it's not worth the risk of losing that market. It's just as simple as they don't want to get banned in China and lose the American market, right? TikTok don't give a shit about the ideology. They're a business like anything else, right? No business gives a shit about the things that they're talking about. It's just about profits. The second I've worked in these things long enough to have had these conversations and put the budget down, which is basically like, well, here's the ethical cost, and here's the cost where you get when they have to choose between the leads and and meeting their KPIs and doing the bare minimum and dodgy shit and not doing anything remotely ethical, right? And those that want to do it the right way, they always choose the quickest, cheapest way to do things, right? It's I don't know where people thought that corporations and wokeism was communism. It's fucking stupid. It's like, no, they're just doing the bare minimum of choice architecture so that you feel like they are not the bad guys. So, there's a reason why the military has a rainbow flag on it, because if they were the military without a rainbow flag, they'd be the people that are killing everyone. Okay, or you get what I'm saying, or Philip Morris, Philip Morris is a bad idea because that's a bad example because they're pretty much universally considered evil, right? But banks. There's a reason why banks are doing it, because if they're not giving you marketing materials where they're like LGBTQ fucking business owners and diverse images on their fucking on their whatever, just all of that sort of stuff, right? That you might actually go, hey, how come you made so many profits last year? Huh? I know, Isaac. Isaac said, wait, that is just MAGA thinking everyone is communism. Don't put that shit on the rest of us. No, that's a fair point. I'm just straw manning. I'm just making fun of you all. There is, you know what? I've said this before. We've thought about going there. We're still maybe thinking about it because the good tech money, good tech jobs are in America. You make a killing over there. Fucking shitty ass tech jobs here. There's none. You don't earn. Paul's at the top of his career here, and that's it. There's nowhere else to go because this town is shit. There's no good tech jobs, right? The good shit is in America as well. And as much as I give you shit, I'm more. I think I'd fit in better there. We just give it shit, right? There's a lot of it's all in good fun. I love America. I want to emphasize, I fucking love America. I love the grand experiment, but I do separate the fact that the country is now largely fascistic, okay? It is right and centre right in the mainstream. The media is broken. The economy is broken. Even when we've been talking about moving, it's like, well, you wouldn't want to live in America if you didn't have money. if you don't have health, if you don't have a job that gives you it's great to have money in America. It's not so great not to, right? It's better here if you are poor, that's the thing about somewhere like Australia. It's getting worse. It's pretty much the richer. Obviously, it's like same thing here. Global capitalism is global capitalism, no matter where you go. That's why. Even if you go to a shopping center, to a mall or whatever, your malls are pretty much identical to ours. We have the same fucking shops, pretty much. You'll see the same lineup of the same food restaurants, the same food franchises and the same retailers. They might be slightly different and slightly branded, but if you go around the world, you'll see that this massive hegemony that's happened culturally in terms of it's corporatization of the world. There might be slightly different menu offerings on McDonald's, but they're not that different, right? Everything is still because I was joking about how when we're thinking about moving to Seattle, which we may still do if the stars align. And I was like, one of the jokes that we had with my son was that we can't get chicken salt in America. What the fuck are we going to do? You can't get chicken salt because chicken salt is one of those uniquely kind of Australian weird foods, right? It's like, can't get chicken salt. And then you look on Amazon and you can get chicken salt. It's just because you can get everything now. So there's not really any real difference. I mean, Australia's different. We're basically America light anyway. So when I give America shit, I do it with love, and I just want to make it clear. I do it with love, and it's always because I'm rooting for you, and I'm upset. A friend of mine that I was talking to on, and he's American, and he lives in the UK, and he was just like, I'm just fucking embarrassed. I'm just embarrassed of my country, and it's like it's like we love you for all of. It's like it very much is like so. It is. The world needs to stage an intervention somehow and say, God, what the fuck is going on here? Why are you doing this? It's with love, right? It's not, we make fun of Americans because it's punching up, okay? It might not be that, obviously someone like Peter and these guys, you're punching down because they're obviously just, I don't know what their fucking end. What I don't know why people show up on things to do that. I've never understood it. I don't understand the point. I just go, well, why don't you just go watch a stream of some woman where she will let you pay her $1 to do it? Like I don't understand what you get out of it. It's like your life is wasted by doing this. Like, why are you wasting your time this way? Because you've got a finite amount of life seconds, and I appreciate those that do choose to spend some of their precious time getting to know me and watching me, and especially when I waste their fucking time by wandering off on tangents and doing all that sort of thing. But at the same time, and I appreciate it, but I also don't necessarily think that I don't get what I don't understand why people fucking watch shit that they hate or watch shit that they're going to argue with. I mean, it must be that they just get off on the arguing, and it's like, well, okay, well, there's plenty of places where you can pay to do that, so go do that. Okay. So anyway, but yeah, I just wanted you to know that I'm, when I love America, and if we end up there, it's, we'd probably stay there for good. We'd emigrate. We'd probably emigrate. We'd probably look to get the H-1Bs and head there. I mean it. I do love America and everything it has to offer. And a big part of it is that the fact that we have been wanting to go, and I don't want to have to factor in our safety and proximity to the borders should things get yuck. That's that's not how it should be. The fact that if we're in Seattle, we have to think about the fact that we're 2 hours from the border, and if we retain our Australian passport, this is how you think. This is how people have to think about going. Remember, when you could think about America as the land of dreams and safety, and you're going there for a better life. We're going there for a better life financially, but there have been things where we've paused and gone, you know what, is it worth it? Is it worth that money? Is it worth the fact that they could show up at HQ or whatever and do a mass shooting? That some cooker would show up with a gun, an AR-15, and fucking mow down a bunch of Amazon employees. That's not out of the question. You got to think about those things, right? What's our fucking safety route if someone like Nikki Haley, or if Donald Trump does get elected and he suddenly decides to just cancel all of the visas and cancel E3 visas, how the fuck are we going to get out? What's our plan? Do we these are very real things, and we're not even Palestinian. This is, I'm as white as you fucking, I'm Romani, but I'm as white as you fucking get. And we're as close as an ally as any country could ever get. People say we're the 51st state for a reason, okay? Which is that fucking, although Israel's probably the 51st state, we're the 52nd state of America. We are as close allies. We've literally got American nuclear bases and nuclear subs sitting 15 minutes away, okay? We are a military target for the United States, okay? We're as allied as you can get. We have a trade agreement between United States. We have special visas. Australians have special visas with the United States, and where pretty much nobody else does. We have the E3 visa. Okay, yeah, Israel, yeah. So Israel's the 51st state. We have E3, we have special visas. So, we have we're pretty much up there, okay? And I'm saying, how the fuck, if we end up there, how the fuck could we get out as immigrants if we need to, right? Imagine how it is for other people. It's very scary if Donald Trump Donald Trump being elected did actually, Donald Trump actually did have a material, severe impact in ways, especially with immigration, the way that it was not functioning when he was president, right? Even fucking rich people, celebrities, okay? Celebrities who married Australians or married someone else couldn't get, they just couldn't get things done, and they had money. They had the ability to fly all of the fucking resources, and they still, Trump's America with the immigration thing was fucked up, okay? There's real material, problems there. But it is, it's we want good. I want every American to have a good life. And I don't understand how they think that this paranoia, fear, othering of other human beings. I don't understand how they think that that's even remotely a healthy or good way to live your life. Like I said, like the people that sort of show up to streams and watch things they don't like, or spend all their time on X being horrible to people or not adding value to anything, or people who's sit around just being like this thing with like conspiracy theory where it's like, I don't understand this thing. Well, then why don't you try to, like, rather than going on a podcast talking about how you don't understand a thing, I don't understand this whole Palestinian thing, why they're saying it, but everyone's saying why. Rather than going on a podcast to say that you don't understand the thing, why don't you spend half an hour watching like Norm Finkelstein speak or Richard Wolff? Why don't you just listen to them? Because I don't understand why you do that. Like that is. But I do go away and take the time to understand why. But I'm just saying, right, I find it perplexing that the biggest, the premise of the internet was that people would have access to all of the information and people would get smarter. It's amazing how wrong that was, because the internet has been a remarkable tool. Like, I have learned so much, both about the internet and about the world, and I've made lifelong friends over 30 years, like people that I know from like forums that like I was on when I was a teenager, and when they're adults, right? People I've known for decades, and like kids that were on forums that I was running when I was, fan forums and stuff, when I was running communities and stuff. They're kids, and then they grew up, and they've flourished, and they've grown up, and it's an experience that you get, that the internet has enabled, that no other generation had before it, right? Where we got to connect with people from all walks of life, like Isaac. It's like you're a young guy. I presume you're young. I think you're a young guy. And you're curious about the world, and you're just here, and you show up, and you're a good guy, and you deserve all the love and care in the world, and like, it enables us to connect with each other, right? That's how it should be. The fact that people's impulse is to just like wreck things and destroy things and attack and, attack things they don't understand, I find it very strange, because it's just not a good life. Oh, you're 42. Okay. The meaning of life. Okay. I wasn't sure. Okay. There we go. Because I do get some young people sort of watching me a bit. It's mostly older people in there. It's mostly Gen Xers, but, cuspers. But, or angry old men who disagree. That's usually the two. I'm not saying you can't disagree. I'm saying you have to have some kind of like, you don't just get to say I disagree without having a relationship or something to back that. You can't just okay, well, some random disagrees with me. That's cool. Okay, I don't know who you are. We're not peers. You're not bringing any information. Okay, well, disagree. Fill your boots. I don't understand the point of saying I disagree. Okay, what do you want me to do with that? Oh, no. A man disagreed with me. My ideas are not man approved. Uh-oh. Better get a man to say it. Oh, that was fucking fascinating. With Kara Swisher was reporting on the OpenAI stuff, and he had all these dudes that were basically, she's a tech journalist. She's one of the most respected tech journalists working, right? And like basically all these dudes that were basically like, oh yeah, Kara Swisher was like speculating. And then once a man said it, it's like, it's now reported that this is happening. It's like, oh my God, you fucking dickheads. Oh, fuck. It's just so poor. Like, oh, I can't believe we're in 2023 and like we still have to keep having these fights over and over again. And it's like, oh yeah, it's a compliment. I'm sure it's a compliment. I'm sure. Ugh. Anyway. But yeah, the Media Matters thing, I might actually talk about that later next time, because that one's interesting. I'm not sure what the legal basis is. Unlike, because because I was in the cookers, I was in the like the MAGA's fucking spaces, and they're going off on this, and they're just so. It's like working, it's like an alternate universe. It's fascinating because, like, I go there because they do a lot of the, unfortunately, a lot of the QAnon people and they do a lot of the digging, and they're able to pull out sort of organization names and names of people and various things. And they give you, they're good for getting leads, right? But the conclusions that they come to are just fucking insane. And you just list them, and there's just this echo chamber of just insanity. Where they really think that it's hilarious how these people they've just worked, they're like toddlers. They've worked themselves up into a fucking tizzy. It's hilarious. But they do have some good stuff. But so Elon Musk obviously announced that he was going to be taking action against Media Matters over the platform manipulation. Now, if you've been watching me for any length of time, you'll know that I've talked about Media Matters and their tactics for many, 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 many years. And I observed what they were doing. Like, they hire interns to sort of plant these out of context clips and then sort of launder it and like through influencer like engagement pods, and then sort of manipulate the algorithms and then make it viral. Then you see it show up on, Majority Report, TYT, Vanguard, Vaush, those things. They sort of launder it through that thing. That's a whole playbook, right? And then they sort of publish hit pieces in various media magazines, and then that validates the lie. So that same sort of template that we've seen play out with sort of Kiwi Farms. Kiwi Farms has a sort of slight exception because it's more of an infrastructure campaign. That one was fucking terrifying. But, Media Matters are sort of, the termites of the internet. Dare I use the word termites? But everyone's using that fucking rhetoric. I'm going to use the word termites. But it's like this kind of erosion of like the foundations of sort of the internet, and they very much have tentacles sort of all around those sorts of these networks, right? That accuse everyone else of disinformation using their disinformation networks, right? But so Media Matters. This is where I will not defend Elon Musk, but I will defend X on these matters. If you watch me sort of regularly, you'll know that I can easily differentiate between those things. A lot of people are leaving X. I am of the view that, you get to a point. Here's whether you should okay, let's should you leave X, right? Should you and it's like, well, this is the brain. There's no real ethical. So let me just think for a second. Let me get a drink of water. Giant water bottle, soda water. If there is one purchase you should make, it is some way of having soda water on tap. It's great. So here's my thoughts on people leaving social networks where they don't like Elon Musk or they don't, whatever. Okay. This is cult of personality shit that buys into this Silicon Valley sort of idea that there is some such thing as sort of good billionaires and the bad billionaires, and there's good guys and bad guys and, all that sort of stuff. On the left, obviously, you've got this idea of sort of ethical consumption, right? Where you try to mitigate or at least minimize the amount of consumption that you do to reduce the harm. I'm not of that view. I don't think that in the current climate there is really any such thing as ethical consumption, okay? All of our clothes are made in China, or, Nepal or Bangladesh or wherever's cheapest, this fucking, whatever, okay? All of our tech support, all of our stuff, it's made with exploited labor, okay? Facebook, their moderation policies, they have been heavy-handed. They've currently suspended, permanently banned Jill Stein, who is the Green presidential candidate in the United States. She's currently been banned by Meta, which I find very concerning that she can't get access. Okay. I find, my personal fuck up with my Facebook account for posting a meme, I deserve that. I get it. That was algorithmic. That's cool. But they should be at least aware of someone as high profile as Jill Stein and be unbanning, and they're not doing that. I find that very concerning. So there's no clean hands, but also Facebook moderation, right? They use, staff in the Philippines. They use staff in Nepal. They use, various, tech sweatshops for moderation, right? They use all of these things. And so when we're talking about leaving Twitter, or X, right, I'd frame it in that way, which is that I have an iPhone. I have clothes that are made in China. I don't necessarily like the billionaires that run things. I don't like the people that, run everything. So why would I differentiate that from someone like Elon Musk? I don't like Mark Zuckerberg either. I don't like any of them, okay? I think they're all greedy, and I think that, I don't think that having a parasocial relationship with billionaires is very healthy. I think that this is your brain on this woke shit, whereas they've hijacked your sort of parasocial, not parasocial, they've hijacked you in this sort of ESG, corporate social responsibility thing, to think that corporations are anything but profit driven and anything human, anything that has a personality. You're falling for branding, you're falling for marketing, okay? So think about Twitter. What's its utility? Is it good for you? Now, I would argue that if you are having a garbage experience, then obviously don't use it, okay? But if you're saying that you're leaving it because you don't like the owner, well, I don't know what to tell you, but, Tim Cook ain't that great either. The owners of Google aren't that great. Microsoft ain't that great. Nobody's all that great, okay? It's just that he's... First of all, there's an admirable honesty and transparency about Elon Musk, because he says it out loud, okay? Zuckerberg, he's more of a lizard man, okay, at this point. They're all, again, I don't see how who owns it is relevant, okay? Unless you're worried about data and data security or various other things, but I'm not worried about any of that stuff, because they've got, they're using they're all using the same hosts and servers and all that sort of stuff, right? So my argument is, well, what am I going to do? Live in a hemp tent and not consume anything? It's just not possible, right? So I think that there's just buy what you can afford, do the best you can, use it for its, if you get value from it, then pay for it. Because also tech products cost money to run. The advertisers that were holding X hostage for many, many years with their sort of, verified accounts and all that sort of shit, right? The stuff that we've talked about a lot. From a product point of view, reliance on advertisers makes it vulnerable to these sorts of campaigns that Media Matters and the CCDH and those things have been doing, okay? And of course, they're going to put their media machine on X, okay? But for you, from a user point of view, if you get valuable interactions from it, if you get value from it, which I do, if you you don't have to have a cause attached to every purchase, okay? Not every purchase has to be about optics. This is, again, that's probably that American thing where the boycott, like this brand, the stuff you buy is not your personality. It's stuff that you buy. You get a personality outside of the things that you're buying and the emoji that it's like, be a whole person and a whole identity and a developed human being. You're not about your stuff. And if anything, the more stuff you have, I think I don't know. Maybe this is more of maybe people could do with a little more Buddhism in their lives and sort of detach a little more from the things and the stuff that they've got and the optics and the brands and the labels and the identities and all those things. And it's like, well, are you human? Are you obsessed with consumption? Are you judging others based on silly, arbitrary things like who they give their money to? Because we've all got to give our money to somebody. It's not like we have a choice in the matter, right? It's been architected to the point where we don't have any real choice. Doesn't matter if you go and buy clothes from David Jones or Target or Kmart or fucking Costco or anywhere like high-end brands, they're all ultimately made in the same like 10 factories in Bangladesh, right? And the only real differentiation is in the quality of the sweatshop. It's not whether or not they use sweatshops, right? And it's like, well, okay. And it's the same thing with tech, we've all got these things with these chips in them that are, made in less than ideal circumstances, and we can try to change that system and regulate and make it so that those things are unionized, and making sure that corporations pay their fucking taxes so that at least when people aren't earning enough money from their work or they're wiped out by AI, that at least there's enough paid back into the system so that we can support people and give people a good life independent of whether they are doing manual labor or not, and those sorts of things, right? And this is where you get into like, are unions still relevant territory? Because I think that the unions are sort of not seeing the forest for the trees here, which is that we should probably be fighting for, I don't think anyone would go for fully government-owned everything, like government-owned everything, but, UBI seems to be where we fit, where we settle, and, UBI and those sorts of things and government programs and greater public spending is going to be a necessity, okay? So it's like, well, where do we put our energy then, and so it's like, and again, it's not being anti-union to say that. That's just being, that again, this is where rigid ideology and rigid, it's like, no, unions are all, it's like, yeah, okay, well, it's not about the unions. It's about the people who are in the unions and them having what's the outcome that you wanted, okay? Because if the outcome that you wanted was a union at all, then does the unions, is that the right solution to the problem? Maybe for 5 years, okay, but all right, well, maybe if you need to be a little more open to different solutions, okay, because right now, I mean, we're seeing that with the SAG-AFTRA stuff, right, where they only signed a contract for 2 years, and it's like AI, yeah, anyway, that's a different thing, but I'm just saying, like, this is that thing, again, single issue stuff, okay, where you are only focused on bringing about this one outcome based on ideology, based on your one solution versus, all right, well, why do we want this solution? What other outcome for humans and are we looking for? Okay, well, what are all of the potential creative ways that we can achieve that? Okay, which is, okay, well, UBI might not be ideal. However, maybe unions are sort of fighting for minimum wage for jobs that won't exist, or forcing you know what I mean? Like, again, I think it's a valid conversation to have, and it doesn't make you anti-union to necessarily say that, right? I think that it's basically like, well, do we just force companies to pay fucking taxation and make it close like tax loopholes? And like, because if there's enough in the public kitty, then it doesn't really matter if work becomes optional pretty fast. And again, this is that American sort of thing where it's like, if you keep them poor enough and desperate enough, you can drive wages down because people are desperate. But if they're not desperate, then people actually truly do operate in a free market and freedom of movement and freedom, like we saw that. A lot of Gen Zers are like, fuck it, I'm not taking a shitty job. I'd just rather not work at all. I'd rather drive an Uber or whatever, right? And like make it like, again, it's, gig economy is not ideal, but I'm just saying I think that we need to be less rigid in our thinking and just sort of shoot the shit a bit more, and accept the fact that like AI is coming and these sorts of things, and also just it's not working. Things are not working the way that, like, yeah. Anyway, I wandered onto a so media matters and shit, right? I'm waiting to see what the filing says. I think the basis is tortious interference, which is interfering with, deliberately interfering with someone's ability to exercise a contract and those sorts of things. I imagine that's what it would be. I've seen that, like, the Attorney General I can't remember, is it Michigan, I think. No, one of the M's, anyway, has said that they're looking into criminal, but I don't know how that would be unless it's like fraud or like wire fraud or something like that, or particular. There needs to be I do find it. Oh, that's right. The MAGAs. It was funny because they just don't know. Like even it's amazing how low the bar is, so to speak, to be a lawyer in America where you don't even understand the law, or they don't understand that they go, oh yeah, they could be arrested for this. It's like, well, no, they can't. There's a whole threshold that people need to get through. It's like just because you file a case in court doesn't mean it's accepted by the court. Like the CCDH and Media Matters court cases, they're just filings. They're not like hearings or anything. They're just, at the moment, they're not actually even anything other than a filing. Anyone can file a court case and state their case. It doesn't mean that there's a legal basis for it. But if it does get heard and it does go to court and all those sorts of things and they don't sort it out, then obviously that's when you start to talk about sort of legal argument. But I want to see the filing tomorrow to see what their legal argument is, because with the CCDH, there's a couple of different ones. Because one is like breach of contract. What's the other ones? I don't have it in front of me. But it was, so they do need to have a legal basis for doing these things. And so I'm just going to wait and see what that is. But because I know what Media Matters have been doing, but they're also very good at, hi, Stephen. I was just about to I'm just about to like go away because I need to go to the toilet. I need to wee. I need a break button, don't I? Actually, I could do that. I can just switch. Let me just take 2 minutes. Let me go wee. Hang on. I'll be back in a sec. All right, I think I'm back. Hang on a sec. There we go. Let me check. There we go. All right. I can kick the can down the road a bit now. Okay. Oh yeah. So the Media Matters thing, I think it'll be a tortious interference case, right? But again, I want to see the filing. But it is interesting because I've been tracking like Media Matters for ages, and it's funny how they've been saying. I've been goading them a bit too, the CEO, where he basically like went, take us to court, we will win. And I said, oh, so what you're saying is that you haven't been running engagement pods and manipulating the Twitter platform using, basically MLM. Is that? It's good to hear. I was worried that you were doing that for a minute, and I've been like teasing them a bit because it's like we know what they're doing. Yeah. So, hang on. Let me just. God, I need to work on the hotkeys and stuff. I hope your meeting went well, Stephen. What was I going to say? We've had some dramas. But yeah, I can't remember what I was saying before. About the lawsuits and stuff. Like they still need to, like they can argue it, but it doesn't necessarily mean that they've got a case. Anyone can file anything, right? It'll be interesting to see, but it is funny. Fucking these MAGA rooms, man. Oh, they're funny. Like they're just they're so good at making simple things just way bigger than they are. And way more complicated and conspiratorial than they are. It's fucking hilarious. Like I was in this one and they're basically just saying, yeah, anyway, I've talked about it before. I said before, like, it's like when it is devoid of analysis around capitalism, right? The leaps you have to make. It's just so much more. It's like this cultural. It's like it's not that complicated. It's like that people, when you orient towards profit, and profit is your only motive, people do whatever it takes to like get there, to do that. When you keep people's survival contingent on them being like a psychopath, they're going to act that way. It's really not that complicated, okay? And it's even with this, it's like with this conspiracy shit. And it's like, it's really not that, it's not that interesting. It's just like, well, it's just info warfare and platform manipulation. And like, you know, it's not a conspiracy. Yeah, I don't know. They lose me. They lose me at a certain point. They just take it's just funny because it's like part of the reason why I sit and listen in these things is that I listen and listen and I go, yep. And I go along and then it just goes into crazy town and you go, okay. And then it's like, into crazy town. And it's just like, okay, well, I've got some information here that like might be workable or useful. But like, it is very funny. It's very entertaining. I tell you what, though, the AI voice things are getting creepy, scary, good. There's like a couple of spaces where they're using AI voice stuff, and one of them uses Elon Musk's voice. And it fucking, I had Paul come and listen. It's like, is this actually him with an alt? It sounds like so much like him, especially with AI voice. It's like there's tells, right? Because I'm a clutterer, which is a form of stutter, it's very hard to generate my voice with AI because I, do this sort of thing where I clutter and I malaprop and I will say words. Like if I generated my voice print with AI, it would sound a lot more consistent. It would have an even tone. There's, you know, the way that you finish words, or I sometimes will finish words halfway through and then move to the next word. That's like part of the cluttering. Elon Musk has the same thing. That's why when you see him in interviews, he talks a lot slower, and he's obviously had some speech therapy and occupational therapy around that, and he's learned to talk sort of, you know, in a certain way. But this room that I was in, and it had his voice, and it definitely sounded like him, but it does capture some of the cluttering as well. And and the laugh as well. It was just really, really creepy. So it very, very close. And to the point where I actually was like, is that Elon Musk? Like, it was very close, right? But, you know, obviously it wasn't. But it's like those, you know, you're seeing a lot of those, like Marjorie Taylor Greene parody. The reason why I follow them, those parody accounts, Jerome Powell parody, and all those other kind of Tulsi Gabbard parody accounts on X, they're actually AI. So that's why I follow them, because I find them interesting. And they're not actually MAGA accounts, really. There's this weird undercurrent of like deep fakes and shit going on at the moment. It's just very interesting. So I follow them and interact. So if you see me interacting with them, it's not because I'm not, it's just I'm curious, right? I kind of like to see what I get back out of it. Also, it doesn't matter, because I follow who I follow, and it's nobody's business. And I talk to anybody who's decent to me, right? The only line is I talk, you know, like there's people who watch that I agree with politically, don't agree with politically, but we like each other, we respect each other. And the only thing is, if you don't respect me, which, you know, the guy earlier in the stream obviously learned that. That I'm sure if you've got eyes and ears and a brain, you'll see the difference between how I interact with someone who respects me, and I can tell they're not respecting me, versus someone who does, right? Always have my guard up a little bit more, because it goes in that direction every fucking time. I can guarantee you, I reckon there's probably some sort of angry email or tirade or something like somewhere waiting for me. Okay, when I get off stream from these guys, they just act so predictably. So it's just, you know, whatever. That's just woman on the internet. Right? That's just one of those things. But I do apologize if I've been rude. But that guy's always kind of been rude. That Wolfman guy has been rude a few times as well. So it's like you keep strikes in my head. Give you a few goes. Yeah. So this it's interesting because I will defend. This is why I'm on the fence with Twitter and X and Elon Musk and all that stuff. First of all, we don't know what's going on. Second of all, it's all a big game of sort of media and like chess and fucking all this shit that I'm not privy to, right? I'm not privy to the conversations. Do I like his fucking politics? No. Do I like his tweets? Fuck no. I wish someone would just tell him to stop. And I tried to explain this because there's it's like, because I was sympathetic, right? That's the thing with the January 6th denialism thing. It's like, look, I can understand how, because again, I'm a normal person. I'm just normal. Where it's like, well, it's not necessarily the people's fault who showed up thinking they were protesting a stolen election. It's not their fault. And it's not, and the architects of it. Right. A lot of people get hoodwinked into these things. Like, I think I said this a couple of streams ago, I don't blame people for falling into this far right pipeline because that's what it is. It's what it does. It's like, it's not someone's fault if they fall into a cult. That's what cults are. You can't blame someone because cults actually take advantage of people's best qualities. It's not their fault. Demonizing people for falling for things is that are powerful. Like, it's like, well, anybody who turns around and says that they are immune and everyone else is a cult are probably the people who are most likely in a cult because they're the ones that don't understand the fact that everyone has blind spots that could drag them into a certain rabbit hole or cult or anything like that. Like, I try really hard. I could well be, right? I tend to, I'm gullible in some areas, but at the same time, I do fight really hard against those biases, and I do make sure that I fact check and I make sure that I keep myself, if I feel paranoid, you can always feel your anxiety. If I'm feeling anxiety or paranoia or something, I sort of dial it back and go, okay, well, what's more, because it's difficult, right? And it's a lot of work. And I'm not immune from it, right? Nobody is. Because, again, it weaponizes your best qualities like trusting people and taking people on face value and steel manning and, all that sort of stuff. That's what cults do. They prey on that. But if there are people out there who just like the most culty people I know accuse everyone else of being in a cult. Right? And I try not to do that. The problem is you can't name it. It's just, you get what I'm trying to say. I try really hard. There's no real way to prove that I am or I am not. I don't think I am. But, it's, but I've fallen for shit before. Like, you can't be on the internet as long as I have and not fallen into some fucking holes. But yeah, the January 6th thing, it's not their fault necessarily. It's like, well, what is the root cause here? Which is the fact that nobody trusts. This would all go away if people were trusted that the government wasn't corrupt. Like, I don't understand how this would not be. It's like, well, again, it's like the analysis, right, with with Gaza and 9/11 and all that sort of stuff, right? And there is this thing where it's like, suppress all speech or any kind of analysis. Don't try to understand why it got there or what led to it. What we could do is just oversimplify it and tar everyone with the brush of being in support of that thing because they want to understand why that thing happened. Right? So like with 9/11, like reading Mein Kampf, reading Mein Kampf to understand Hitler, to try and, understand what happened, right? I think Glenn Greenwald used this example and paralleled that with the Osama bin Laden letter. But, not everyone who reads those things or tries to understand what happened wants to recreate it. They're not America. Again, it's almost like some people are projecting things. Trying to understand how can happen and how it could not happen again, and trying to understand why, and, try to get answers, right? And it's the same thing with the Osama bin Laden thing. Like, suppressing that is, equating that with being pro-Osama. What the fuck? Like, that was such a psyop. It's obviously a fucking psyop. But anyway, it's like, well, no, you want to understand it. It's like the only reason that you wouldn't want people to understand it is because you're trying to sell them a lie, and they're going to see that you're lying. And obviously Americans in particular have been sold a lie that, the Middle East, all the Muslims and, Osama bin Laden, all those people, they just don't like freedom. They hate your freedom and they're jealous of the freedom and they just want to attack America. It's like, well, that's not the fucking story. And that's why I think it's very important to make sure that you take in all perspectives, because I think that willingness to take in all perspectives is what keeps you sane, right? And also on the straight and narrow, because, it's very easy to fall into this like controlled information environment where you're only seeing, one side of the story. Isaac said, yeah, I've fallen into a few holes. I may have once upon a time thought investing in gold was a good idea. It was a stupid libertarian face. Yeah, and like it's funny, isn't it? Yeah, it's you're only a few clicks away from it. It only takes, honestly, it usually only takes about a week of watching, like, it doesn't take long, because it's like, okay, you stumble on a new YouTuber and then you binge watch that YouTuber, and then you kind of watch their descent into madness and you go with them, right? And then you start reading these things, and before you know it, you're not really thinking very clearly, right? But the one thing about neoliberalism is that it tends to be stable until it falls off a cliff. I like to think that it might stay stable still, and it's like stabilizing, I hope. But it's like, what was I going to say? Oh yeah, so the January 6th stuff, right? And it's like, it's not no one's fault necessarily. It's just, the root cause is that people are scared. Like, America has to address its root causes: its class system, caste system, its lack of true upward mobility, its economic situation. It's a terrible, they're seeing that generations of people that have been told that they're freedom, and then that they've got freedom, and then they're being left out from that. And of course they're going to think, well, they're going to blame someone because they're being told that they're free when they're not. You're not free. And it's like, well, maybe if they just sort of saw things as they are, which is, the government's lying and we're not free and it's corrupt, which that's the thing, is that people are starting to see that, right? And they go, well, we see that the government's corrupt. Well, but also capitalism's great. We just want our capitalism. We just want our capitalism. And you go, well, it ends there. It ends with, I can't remember what I was going to say. Can't remember. Oh yeah, but just again, it's like when you don't have the tools that you need, it's not anyone's fault. I mean, even the MAGAs, it's not their fault. I understand where they're coming from. My frustration is with people who don't want to hear it and don't want to learn and are just so aggressively ignorant and stupid that they won't hear it. They won't hear you. And that's what that's a cult member. Cult members are like that. They won't hear you. They're not open. They're just there. And there's nothing you can say or do. It's a waste of time. But there are people that can be, reasoned with and go, okay, you know what? Socialism is not the revolutionaries that have been sort of, all of that shit, right? That socialism is not Antifa. Antifa are a fucking, like, what the fuck? It's like college kids on campus are not your enemy. They're idiots. That's right. Just give some health care. It's not that hard. It's like, make it so that people aren't starving and they'll trust their government more, and they might not be marching on the Capitol then. Right? And again, I could go into theory about why fascism becomes necessary under capitalism, because, you're seeing that happen, which is that if you don't look after your people and you don't keep them, well and fed and leading a good life, You have to get more and more militaristic and turn more into a dictatorship and more dictatorial in order to maintain that structure and to maintain that oppression, right? You have to be more and more severe, on behalf of capital. And you're seeing that happen now in America. And it's like, well, unless you can, it'll break, right? There's like, look up, Rosa Luxemburg, she was a revolutionary socialist, but again, like, you can have quiet revolutions. You can decide to change. It doesn't need to have bloodshed. I would hope, I desperately don't want that to be the case, because I don't. First of all, like I said, I don't want to be in America when there's a revolution happening and you're sitting in some of the richer cities. Fuck that shit. Like, I don't want to be shot. I don't want to be fucking murdered. Like, I want to be safe. I want everyone to be safe and happy, right? And I don't want even just from even if I was not worried about others and only worried about my own safety, it's better for your self-interest to keep people. This is Adam Smith, right? This is the invisible hand, which is the irony of all of this, which is that even if you are a psychopath, it is in your self-interest to help people so that they don't kill you, right? It's like, I know that I'm butchering it, but I'm just saying, right? That's the invisible hand at work, right? Which is that even if you are the most self-interested person alive, it is in your self-interest and in your survive. You will be more likely to survive if you share, right? But I think that, I hope that we can just move forward. I mean, I've got a little hope. I don't know. I haven't seen whether there is actually a ceasefire yet, but I'm hopeful that we can, things can change quickly. I hope that this, I don't know, again, I'm not saying that like killing people gives this is like the ultimate in fucking Western narcissism, where it's like doesn't touch me or affect me in any way, to say, oh, well, maybe these things can like turn out in the end. That's not what I'm saying. That's a horrible thing to say. It is awful and it shouldn't happen ever. But maybe like it might bring some healing to various parts of the left where they have been on the receiving end of the things that a lot of other lefties have been warning about, such as myself, for some time, and that they see that these fucking woke like corporations and shit are not on their side, that and also the people who are on the left who are anti-censorship. Like I've noticed, like Glenn Greenwald is fucking like spitting, okay, which is great. I love seeing it, okay, because he was basically sort of pushing this whole, the conservatives are like anti-censorship now, right? And it's like, well, that fucking flip. I was worried about that, but they've shown their true colors and like true principles there as well. So I think that it might be, again, qualifying it. It is disgusting. It should never have happened. And no, it's not about us, but it might have a at least slightly more clear-headed sense of who your enemies and who your allies are, like in these things, right? And politically and economically in particular, in terms of economic interests, because we all know that Ben Shapiro doesn't give a fuck about free speech. Okay, it is interesting to watch the Tucker Carlson and Candace Owens and watch those, because remember, there are people who drift right from the left. But, that people can be pulled left, because if you're on the left and you're confident about what it means to be on the left and you believe that, like the data backs you up and all of these ideas, I don't understand how you think that you can't win people over with a conversation. So long, I think that it's interesting where you can actually have these conversations. They won't invite you on. That's the thing, is they won't have lefties on, right? But that's why they don't, because they know that large parts of their audience can be persuaded with some facts and data. And if you're confident that you are right, you're not threatened by speech. of others, because you can just go, well, you're wrong about that. That's not correct. And it doesn't matter how many times you repeat it in a bubble, it's not correct, because it's just not one of the what's like, for example, like with China. Let's use the China example. The about nuclear weapons. China won't strike first with nuclear weapons. They've got a purely defensive policy on it, which is that they absolutely look into that. Actually, it's really interesting, where they're basically they're basically doing the non-aggression principle. These fucking dudes, and it's like, well, they're always banging on about their fucking voluntarism and non-aggression, but China's like not aggressive, or like Taiwan is not imperialism. Taiwan is a disputed territory that they decided to secede, and it is contested, and China doesn't accept it. It's more like if Western Australia, decided to leave the rest of the country, and they didn't let them, but they said, no, we're going to continue to be a country anyway. Okay, it's kind of like that, which is that actually happened. Okay, we voted to leave, and like they didn't let us leave. Okay, and we went, okay then. But if we decided that we were a country, okay, it's more about that. It's not that China has expanded into the territory. Okay, it's not like it's not the same. The United States is expansionist, right? Russia is imperialist. China is not imperialist necessarily. Okay, China operates in China's interests. Yes, every country does. Emmett Shear is now. Okay. Okay, so he didn't go back. That's interesting. Okay, okay, cool. I'll have to look at it. Yeah, he was CEO of the Tweet. Yeah, I know, yeah. That's an interesting move. Okay. Yeah, so because Twitch has been going through some stuff too. I don't know a lot about his record. Yeah, they all blend into each other after a while. And I know Twitch has had a couple of anyway. No, that's okay. So, that's interesting. So he's not going back. So it's going to be interesting to see who fucking leaves, because it looks like it's going to be an exodus. Well, I think okay, interesting. Sorry, I'm just having a moment to digest that. What's interesting about the OpenAI governance structure is that the way that it is set up is so that Microsoft, so because it's a not-for-profit, direct linked into another company, right? And Microsoft, because like off the back of the Microsoft, there's a lot of antitrust like lawsuits going on at the moment, right? And like it's almost like there's a theory sort of boiling and simmering that maybe there's like that Microsoft are trying to acquire OpenAI, but doing it in a way that they can't that they get around the antitrust, because if they actually just broke it apart and dismantle the whole fucking thing, right, that they can just absorb it, right? But and rather than acquire it, and get antitrust scrutiny, because OpenAI is a not-for-profit, they get and they're just like giving like funding to a not-for-profit. That doesn't fall under an acquisition, right? There's no M&A like that's occurred there with OpenAI and Microsoft. Microsoft hasn't acquired it. They are just giving money to a foundation or to a not-for-profit, right? And so because Microsoft have been on the wrong side of antitrust like a lot of the time, and especially like Activision and so many different times, that they found a creative way to acquire OpenAI without tripping up, that reporting and all that sort of stuff, so they don't need to report those sorts of that sort of stuff, right? And so there is a theory sort of brewing around the AI scene at the moment that basically Altman they sort of a hostile sort of acquisition, but in a way that Microsoft can acquire it. But that obviously was refuted now because there's no, okay, so that would be not the case. So that was one of the, I don't know if I worded it, and I'm fading because, you know, it's like been 2.5 hours, but that was one of the theories before Microsoft went to bat for Altman and said that they didn't know either and that there was a mutiny. But there is a part of that where maybe OpenAI's, again, it's hard to know who the good guys are, who's doing the right thing, who's doing the wrong thing, what motivations are, because there's a lot of money involved. And also, you know, it could have been a coup, but it could also have been a coup because Altman and Microsoft were colluding to, like, have it, you know, be absorbed by Microsoft and evade antitrust, and they had an ethical and the board had an ethical problem with it. You know what I mean? There's lots of different, like you know, like there's this Silicon Valley shit is fucking brutal, man. It's like, it's brutal. It's Lord of the fucking Flies every day. And so, you know, it'd be interesting. I think we've got to wait for the dust to settle a little bit and see what transpires and see what comes out. Now that Altman's not CEO, I think it's going to be interesting because he seems quite willing to spill the tea. And so I'm sure he'll land on his feet. And like I've said before, I don't form parasocial relationships with people who don't give a fuck about whether I live, die, exist, think, what I say, or what I do. It's like, you know, if they hire me and they're my boss and I've got a contract with them and they're paying me lots of money, then sure, I'll suck their dick and I'll say what I want. But why am I, like, I don't have a fucking parasocial relationship with billionaires who I don't, you know, like, we're all ultimately owned by billionaires. Like, my husband works for one, and I just avoid talking about that particular billionaire because it's in our interest to do so. But it doesn't mean that I fucking, you know, billionaires are also still people, right? And they're still, you know, but at the same time, it's like, I fucking be loyal. Don't give your loyalty away for free. You don't put up with, it's like with this, like, again, back to internet comments. You don't need to put up with stuff from people who don't pay you or like whatever, right? It's like you can have boundaries around what you are and are not willing to accept, and what you're able to do, and the choices that you're able to make, and the things that you're allowed to that you give up or tolerate. That's, you know, that's being narrowed and squeezed. Like, we're being, like, I'm squeezed in, like, you know, property and housing and bills and income and professionally and you know, so why self-restrict more than you absolutely need to be? It's like, I will stop speaking when people stop me speaking because that's the one thing I could exercise. Like, you know, like, you know, I can exercise it until I can't anymore, right? I'm not going to willingly give up my rights to things. They can take them, right? I don't think they will, but, like, I'm not really that interesting. But I don't understand why people will just give themselves away to a fucking person who doesn't even know they exist, let alone fucking do anything for them or care about them. And it's like, yeah, I'll talk about them if they're, like, interesting. But, you know, I actually did apply for an AI, a job at XAI, because I was like, oh yeah, looks like it's an interesting job. But, you know, if they won't hire me because I called him a fuckstick 3 streams ago, then that's on them. Like, that's them. Doesn't, like, okay, fine. But it doesn't mean I'm going to stop saying stuff. Okay, because that's how capitalism operates. It operates with coercion, which is, it's like, well, if I have to, again, I'm probably just, this is my problem, which is that I will not shut up for money, which is annoying. But, you know, I like to think that it's part of the reason why I probably fit better in America than I would here. Here, you know, we're kind of a little bit more self-censory, like as direct as Australians are in certain situations. You know, America is different. You've got that First Amendment baked in, like, even though it's under threat, and even though certain things, you know, I think there are conversations to be had about, like, whether big platforms are considered public, because you've got that public-private divide in politics and law, and whether you just go, well, okay, you can't get your dick out in public, well, you can't say certain things on public platforms like Twitter and Facebook, whatever. They're not private. They're not private spaces. But you can say what you want behind closed doors. I mean, or do what you want. However, if someone else is being harmed, then, much like domestic violence, then, or various other things, then the home is your castle, but you're still got to, we're not going to impede in what you do in your day-to-day life. But if you're hurting someone else or infringing someone else's safety or rights, then of course that then becomes the state's business. That is the same sort of, again, there's no new things here. It's just we've got to decide whether Twitter, Facebook, these platforms that want to be both private platforms and public platforms, the rules are different. That's why with Twitter's algorithm, it tends to ban you more for a reply at somebody than it does for what you say on your own feed. Okay. And if you're broadcasting it to a large amount of people, then they're going to take it, versus being able to talk in your little bubble and not make it anyone else's problem. Like that's a good system, which is that you can still have the freedom of reach. Not freedom of reach, which is public, and then, but you still got the speech. It's like no one's going around, it's still not legal to go around hurling abuse at people on the street, and so, yeah, so, like those things need to be sorted out. I think we're working through it. I don't know. I don't know why people fucking like. I don't know why people worship like rich people or celebrities and stuff. I think maybe it's because I worked with famous people and stuff, and I just go, well, they're just people. I just see everyone as people too, so it's not. I don't tend to elevate people above me. Like I don't have that parasocial chip, right? Like I've been friends with people of varying degrees, profiles. I've met rich people, poor people. I talk to anybody. If they're, again, as long as they're interesting and respectful and we have something to talk about, then we're cool, right? And as long as they're not an asshole to me, I'll talk to anyone. I'll sit. And I think that came from my grandma because she used to catch the bus. She didn't drive, so she used to catch public transport. And a lot of my childhood, because I was raised by her, a lot of my childhood was just spent sitting at bus stops. Well, my grandma would talk to everyone at the bus stop. So I had that modelled that you just talk to anybody who's at the bus stop, and it's lots of different people. My dad was a drunk, but I would hang out at the pub and he'd talk to anybody, anyone from hobos to fucking millionaires, depending on what night it was at the pub, right? So that was just how I talk to everybody, and also through business, politics, going to different things, and also being underprivileged myself and being a social worker when I was a graduate. I think when you experience a wide range of people, in more ways than one, when you experience a wide range of sort of, people and, different classes, different races, you have relationships you realize that sometimes the people that are closest to you, like your family, can be horrible, and the people that are furthest away from you can be the kindest, people are a mixed bag, and you can't, we need to fight that shit. Like, fearing, as much as I made fun of Americans and MAGAs and stuff, I still see them as people. I just, you have a finite amount of resources, and so you've got to set boundaries around that stuff. But, try to see the humanity in people. But, do expect them to see it in you first, right? You've got to set expectations. You got to set a bar for it. But I think I just lack that chip where I'm impressed. I'm not impressed by money. I'm not impressed by status or wealth or whatever. I get excited when people I admire interact or whatever. Ricky Gervais likes my tweets a lot. It's very strange. I always get a little bit of excitement when comedians and people that I admire, because I admire comics. I'm a comic through and through. In a perfect world, I'd be a road comic, and I'd just be a comedian, and I'd be able to, whatever, right? That would be if I had my time again, I'd invest my time and energy into, that. I'm just, the ship sailed there. But it's just, Yeah, no, I don't tend to. Yeah, it's like, yeah, I have a chat with anybody. I don't give a shit. I'm not impressed. Because again, I've had clients. Like, I think it's just the nature of when you're in business. You work with, like, I've worked for politicians. I've worked for fucking CEOs of big corporations. I've worked in, like, with rock stars and musicians and people who are famous but not got any money, and people who aren't famous but got lots of money. And it's like, it's all, people are just they're interesting. Everyone has something of value, right? Doesn't mean I need to put up with it on a stream, but generally people, if you invest some time and compassion and energy and stuff. Speaking of which, I still haven't replied to your email, Isaac. I'm in that 2 week thing where I've got multiple, like, law school essays to do, and all of this other stuff has been going down. So I've been a bit distracted, but, but again, to vaguely answer your question around, that guy that you asked about, you can have strange allies, not necessarily agree with their politics. I do see him as a source for some information. But I'm always suspicious of anybody who is, I have my guard up with a lot of these guys. What he's saying seems to be, it checks out with a lot of what I've been observing, and checks out, but there's a lot of fucking people that, there's a lot of very quirky people in the algorithm. There's this one, the Kristen Ruby. I don't know if you've seen this Kristen Ruby account. And, like, she keeps just going on about, this is your thing. This is your brain on one thing, where it's like, she's just decided that she's like, oh, they're all using natural language processing and machine learning, and everything is and it's like, yeah, we know. But she spins it in a way that it's like she's revealing some big scoop. And it's like, well, no, not really. If you're in tech, it's not a conspiracy. It's the same thing with these funnels and stuff. Like, none of it, a lot of these things are not, they're not difficult concepts. Like, most of the industry knows about a sales funnel. Most of them know about algorithm. If you're in tech, you know what an algorithm is. You know that, the algorithm is not a god or a fucking sentient. It's not sentient. It's not anything. It's just, it's just logic, code, and AI runs some of it, and some of it is just hard-coded heuristics and logic, right? The other thing is, but then you've got, like, these funnels, and then you've got politics, and you've got interests and these things. Individually, none of these things are terribly controversial things to say. It's just that not many people are linking it together in a consistent manner. A lot of them are doing it to try and sort of make it into some sort of big conspiracy when it's not. And I think this is why, like, I think it's just because I'm sort of more of a systems thinker type, where I go, okay, this is a complex system. And how do we, like, solve it and reverse engineer it and slice it down and break it up and then zoom out, zoom in, zoom out, zoom in, and try to resolve it, right, with various things. I find that it's funny with people, it's funny where they're on the right track, but they're missing stuff. There's blind spots. And unfortunately, I have blind spots too. Like, a lot of my blind spot is in the mathematical. An original blind spot was, for me, not being deeply familiar with US culture wars and the history of that. So the ratchet effect, the sort of the way that, like, no, I knew that the United States was sort of right and far right in terms of those two main parties, and I obviously understand the legal stuff. Yeah, that's who I meant. Sorry, Kristen Ruby. Yes, but I followed her because I was like, she actually she said some stuff, and she dropped and I was like, okay, this is interesting. But then she just, I was like, okay, no, what? Okay, yeah, you're talking about something that everyone knows. Like, it's not, but she does it like it's breaking news and stuff, and it's like, okay. But yeah, anyway, there's some interesting characters in this space, and they've all got something to add, because the thing is that, I do still pay attention to them, because everyone has something to add, because some people might be, like, digging in an area that is just, like, might bring up something that I can use, right, or see, or whatever. Like my big blind spot was having to go back and understand that when the United States say Marxism, they mean fucking center right Keynesian economics. And Marxism is like they mean when they say far right or extreme left or whatever, it doesn't mean the words have no meaning. And I initially took it on face value and I was like, okay. And I was very deeply confused because it was it's basically like a different language. I was learning, it's like going from Italian to Spanish. Like they're both Latin languages and they're both similar, or like, Italian to French, right? They're similar languages. They've got similar patterns. They sound the same, but they're like very different, like inflections and meanings and yeah. So it's like Australian, like the standard sort of American political theory has been so narrowed and tribalized and sort of reduced down. This is, again, linked back to why I won't quibble over concepts, because it's basically like American political science departments and sociology departments have been given busy work, right? Breaking down things on a factory floor like squirrels and nuts with theory. Yeah. Extreme left. Maybe we should enforce tax law. Yeah. And it's like anyone, but even if what's interesting is that even if you're a political scientist, even if you're not a political scientist, this is high school political science, right? Or like first year undergrad, knows that the left and right political spectrum, as models go, is meaningless. Doesn't matter. Even the 4-point axis, it's not meaningful. They're models and they're very, very, they're just not. So it's just so weird that it's like 1 and 0 and like you're either 1 or 0 in everything. And it's like I think my best answer is whenever anyone says anything like tries to attribute any kind of thing label to me, I go, sorry, I don't believe in horoscopes. It feels like horoscopes. Oh, I'm an Aries. No, okay, what the fuck does that mean? It's just like feels like horoscopes, right? But it's detached. That was my big, I think, blind spot with this whole culture wars, internet sense, all of this stuff, was thinking that we were talking about the same things and not realizing how detached like from the actual definitions and theory the culture wars is. And it's like a redefinition of so many different words that they're actually meaningless, right? So it's like I hadn't realized just what a mess it had become, right? This thing where it's like just detachment, words being detached. Speaking of semiotics, words being detached from their meanings and symbols, right? And seeing everything as symbolic rather than actually like, So it's been, like it's been this weird linguistics experiment. Like, again, that's like thought reform stuff. Like if you look at like Robert J. Lifton's work, it's like thought reform stuff, right? Milieu control and thought terminating language and all that sort of stuff. So that was kind of the revelation that I had, was like, oh, this is like totalitarianism. And like, it's not totalitarianism because totalitarianism is a system of government, but it's totalism. So totalism is 1 versus 0, Republicans versus Democrat, absolute black and white thinking. That's totalism. Totalitarianism is a system of government that goes in that direction. It's still heading in that direction. It's not quite there, okay? But totalism is separate. It's a distinct thing. You can have totalism without totalitarian government, right? And I think that's the internet has poured jet fuel on a lot of that stuff. I underestimated that. And also the milieu control, so the change in language. Like it was like learning another language. And once I learned that socialist, these things meant different things, that like literally, like you'll have liberals who will there was a Rod, when Rod was on, and he said he's a sociology professor, and I was just saying like boring old socialist Marxist shit, like class analysis, And then he said that I was one of those people that were vulnerable to the far right. And I was like, what are you talking about? This is just Marxist analysis. And it's like, they're so weird. It's like anything like remotely material in terms of thinking that the system is broken and needs like severe change. Anything remotely touching revolution is seen as fascism, because they've just been subjected so much, and I'm sure that Isaac would verify this, but there's been letterboxed so much that any kind of revolution is framed as fascism because of this horseshoe theory idea that Stalin and Hitler were the same, and that they're equivalent, and that it's all fascism and it's all blah, 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 right? So any kind of talk of revolution that's not sort of neolib, neocon, like that letterbox, is somehow perceived as the same thing. But I did talk about, like, there are different types. You know how I talked about the different types of accelerationism? It's that same thing. Those different motivations, they may end up in the same authoritarian fucking clusterfuck, but the reasons for being there are not the same. And I'm acutely aware of the risk of the sort of red brown shit, right? The vulnerability of socialists, especially revolutionary socialists, without their proper toolkit and without being very, very careful. Like, let's say Jimmy Dore, right? Jimmy Dore is a really good example who sort of has an audience that is vulnerable to that sort of fascism rhetoric, as is Russell Brand. I'm not saying they are. I'm saying they are walking that line where they are at risk of it. Where that, you know, that kind of veers into, once you start defending Trump and the rhetoric of Trump, it's time to sort of circle back a little bit, okay? Especially given, the thing is, you can think that they're persecuting him and not still run his defense. He deserves everything he fucking gets, okay? But I think they're persecuting him, but you get what I'm saying? It doesn't detach from his politics. Like, lots of things can be true at the same time. I'm not defending him, okay, at all. Like, there's no reason. Like, it's like, okay, sorry, minced my words. I did find it funny. I watched Tim Dillon's latest podcast is funny, where it's like, I do find it hilarious that, like, the thing that they get him on is, like, he inflated the price of his, like, real estate in America. I was like, yes, they lock him up for that high crime, right? The January 6th stuff is more serious, but, you know, yeah, of course they're trying to fucking go after him, of course. But remember, they also go after mafia bosses, and some of them go down for a tail light being out. And, like, how did Al Capone go, right? It doesn't mean that Al Capone did nothing wrong. Well, that's where, yeah, so hi, Matthew. Yes, so we all need simplistic explanations where there are none. Well, that's exactly, and that's where conspiracy theories thrive, right? And that is where, where you think that it's easy. It's wrapping things up in a neat package. It's how we sort of maintain that homeostasis, right? We want to stay. It's stressful. Again, it's like the psychology of this. It's like we're around, like, cognitive dissonance is basically our body stresses out when we holding two competing thoughts that don't match or aren't consistent with our worldview. It's very fucking stressful, like, in that state. Now, body does everything that it can, including lie to us and, like, fool us in various ways to make that occur. And if you need to, and if you, so filling in those gaps, be aware of how you fill in and gaps and write history. And, like, I fill in gaps. I'm the queen of rewriting history. Right? Everyone's the hero of their own story. If you talk to me about shit that happened, it's like, and you talk to someone else, it's like, I live in my own reality. It's an alternate reality a lot of the time, right? But I'm aware of it. I know that I kind of, it's pretty funny. But we're all very unreliable narrators. But conspiracy theories, like, thrive on that. Like, this is where bad actors, but that's a human quality. Good guys reflect on it and don't exploit it. Bad guys study it and fucking, try to exploit that. And those guys exist on the internet, right? And they exist politically. And, that's what psychopaths do. It's what sociopaths do. Sociopaths go, I'm going to study human behavior and figure out how to fuck with people and manipulate people to, it doesn't matter as long as I'm making money, right? but it doesn't mean that there's anything wrong with you or you've done anything wrong. It's just, everyone gets caught by a con man at some point, and if you haven't been caught or hoodwinked at some point in your life by someone, then you're not living your life and you're not interacting with enough people. I've been fucked over enough times and interacted with enough different people and seen enough that I can spot it, right? Like, again, that beginning of that stream where I'm like, I know how this dickhead's going. All right, block. I just know because I've got heuristics, right? That's what heuristics are in psychology, where you go, well, heuristics are patterns, and you just know, and schemas, that's another word you might have heard, where you've got these sort of patterns to save and conserve energy so that when things happen, we're conserving energy to do that. So we create these things, and sometimes those break, sometimes they're not reliable. But, like, it doesn't, I find it much more interesting to think that, like, things are outside. I think you just got to surrender and go, things are chaos. And I just love the chaos. The chaos is interesting. Isn't that interesting? And I go, off you go. And I think that, again, I conserve cognitive energy by focusing on the things that are within my control, knowledge, skill set, understanding. Okay. I don't try to fill in the gaps. So I think that a lot of things where people go wrong is that they try to fill in gaps when they don't need. First of all, they don't need to. Second of all, they aren't equipped to do so, so they don't have the information. So for me, I just go, okay, dust off. I don't know about that. Okay. And I don't feel the need to fill the gaps in. So maybe that's protective, right? I just go, I don't know. It can be perceived as not caring, but it's not really. It's just that you can't care about everything. You can't know about everything. It's not physically possible, right? It's I think that's partially how I stay sane, is that I'm good at just self-selecting out of things when I'm like out of my depth, and like I don't feel the need to. I don't sit in dissonance, right? I'm curious. I'll go, I want to learn about that. Okay. I don't want to learn about that. It's dead to me. And that's ADD as well. If it doesn't exist, if I'm not interested in it, it doesn't exist. So it's somewhat protective there as well. But, we don't need explanations for stuff. I think a big problem and side effect of the internet is that we feel this pressure to have all of this information. It's like, people survived pretty well not knowing what the fuck was going on in the world without news for, several thousand years, right? I don't know, were they happier? Yeah. I know what you mean. This is why I don't care or think about Australia at all. Exactly, see? Exactly. Well, and that's the right attitude. I don't want to have to think about America. That's the thing that annoys me, is I don't want to have to fucking deal with this. I'd love to be able to think more about where I'm at, right? But unfortunately, so much of American stuff affects us. So it looks like, and that's one of those things where it's like, well, not only Americans don't have any concept that we're in this too with you. You guys don't care about us, but what you do affects us. And we don't get you get what I'm saying? So it's like we are somewhat dragged in and forced to engage with stuff that, like, you get. That's just cultural imperialism. It's not much that's just the way that it is. So dominant. All the tech platforms are owned by America and run by America. Regardless of what they tell you about TikTok, ByteDance is, they've split, and the TikTok that we see is dictated by the American government as much as any other social platform. All the big tech, all of the data, all of the hosting, all of the, data centers. I mean, we've got those here, but, everything. Information, government, media, corporate media, it's, comes out of America, right? Like Rupert Murdoch is kind of the exception because he's Australian, but it's he pays no tax here. He's based in America and fucks up our politics, right? So so when you talk about, I find it funny how the MAGA guys, and they're like globalists. It's like, you do know that America is the globe when it comes to these types of things. This is not the globalists. This is American hegemony and the Democrats in charge. It's like they really think that we get more say than we do. It's like not the globalists, it's the capitalists and it's the corporations that are all headquartered in the United States. I'd like more of a say, please, in how things are run. Thank you very much. You know, yes, it's an incoherent ideology in the fact that it's like, again, you know, we know about this, which is like the enemy is both the weakest and stupidest, but also brilliant, conniving, and all-powerful at the same time. It's like you can't have it both ways. It's like, yeah, it's hilarious. But I am not sure how loud the sound is. Unfortunately, the way that it's set up, my headphone jack on the laptop here is covered by a dock thing with the MacBook, and the only headphones I've got are headphone jack ones that are actually good quality, and it varies from device to device. So I've tried to calibrate it across various things, but I'll calibrate it again once I listen on the sound bar tonight with the thing. So, and also, I don't want to be one of those people that looks like I got a cock in my mouth microphone. I like it to be a little further away. And unfortunately, when you move the mic a little further away, you get a little more echo. Like if I was to do this and I had the podcast voice, I could do that. But then I'd have a cock in my mouth, right? I don't want that. So you've got to balance that. And, but yeah, so figuring that out. But anyway, I think I'm going to go. It's been 3 hours. That's crazy. And I'm starving. Got to eat. Everything I do has to have a quota. And I need to reach my protein quota today. But I'm going to go. I will be, yeah, I'm going to do this every Monday now. So we just shoot the shit and say whatever and talk shit. Yeah, but I'll probably be back. I've got a big week of assignments and assessments and various other things this week. So I'm not optimistic about streaming much or doing much else. But I'll be back definitely next Monday around the same time. And we'll do the same thing. And this can just be the filler thing where we talk about various things that have come up. But it's good to see you all, and I hope you're all well. I will be back sometime. Definitely Monday, if not in between. But this week's pretty crazy. So, yeah. Anyway, I love you. Thanks for watching, and take care. And bye. Paul gets mad if I don't say thank you for your precious life seconds. So I'll say that. Thank you for your precious life seconds. I appreciate it. Bye. Where's my button? Hang on. No. What a load of... Bye.